Chapter 5. Whoa, Purgis. The impossibly ornate door connected right to the meeting hall. A large round table was positioned in the center with 12 evenly spaced chairs surrounding it. 10 demon lords were on the invite list, with Carillon absent, so 2 of these seats would be empty even if I took up one. Attendees sat in chronological order of their demon lord appointment, and so I was placed right in front of the door. Not that I minded. My attention was focused in the room around me anyway. On an occasion like this, I wanted to observe my new colleagues as much as possible. Of course, there were only 2 people here right now. One was Ramirez at the seat of honor way on the other side. She was seated and kicking her legs around, having a whale of a time, like a kid on a car trip. I figured I could ignore her. No, my attention was on her right, at the seat directly facing me. There I saw a man with bewitchingly attractive red hair. A man, definitely, but there was more than a touch of femininity to his dashing good looks. His eyes were shut, but I doubted he was napping. One look was all I needed to know. This dude was trouble. Analyze and assess seemed to suggest that he wasn't any big deal, but my sixth sense was giving me the eeriest vibes with him. At first glance, he seemed like an inexperienced kid, kind of magically strong but unable to control his aura. Without the great sage's analytical skills, I might have been tricked. That was how crafty he was at hiding his true self, feeding the people around him misinformation and making them underestimate his true skill. We hadn't even started fighting yet, and the battle was already underway. It made me recall the mind-reading skills of Gazelle, the dwarf king. Kind of like my great sage, nobody would know you had that skill unless you told them. It wouldn't be until someone tried it on you that you'd notice it, I think, unless it was a mind reading that went really deep into your psyche to avoid that. As long as my latent resistance didn't fail me, I was pretty sure I'd be okay. As a result of this, hiding your skills was very important. You could also bluff people into thinking you had certain skills or deliberately mess up a skill to make them think you were inept to wield it. There were all kinds of ways to play with your opponent's minds, and that was exactly what this pretty boy was doing, tricking other people's analyze and assess skills to mess around with them. My idea had always been to hide my powers, keep my aura turned down as long as possible, and give the enemy 0 information to work with. This guy, meanwhile, was using his rival's data-gathering skills against them. It was a sort of screening process. He was, in effect, asking his foes, "Do you have the power to read me?" If they didn't, they were out of the picture. If they did, he'd gauge their response. If the fake info he planted into their minds was enough to scare them off, they weren't worth dealing with in the first place. But if you did notice his trick, that glance at the sheer depths of his powers would make you unable to resist him. But think of it like this. Even the data he wanted you to know about indicated that he had as much magical force as Carillon. There was no way to guess how much he actually had. Even if you understood his game, it was hard not to let it unnerve you a bit. This was Guy, and he was clearly on a whole other level. By the time I was done examining Guy, a large man lumbered into the room, bringing only one guest with him. This was Dagrul, the demon lord giant whose overwhelming presence dominated any room he was in. He immediately walked up and slammed himself into a seat at Guy's right, kicking back and putting his feet up. The empty space between them must have belonged to Milim, indicating that the table divided demon lords into 2 halves based on their order, with Guy on one end and me on the other. I turned my eyes to him. Guy was a tall figure himself, but Dagrul was enormous, not to mention comfy-looking in his specially made chair. Even something like this chair was an opulent-looking magical item. This was Veldora's favorite rival, and the magic with which he presented himself definitely signaled to me that he could take on a dragon type. Plus, the amount of magicule energy on him was just ridiculous. Was that higher or lower than Veldora's? It seemed bottomless to me, but it'd be hard to accurately measure unless I fought him for real. Still, quality beat quantity. Just because he had a bunch of magicules on hand didn't make him seem that scary to me. The key was how well he used them. Differences in skill level were a vital aspect of any fight, of course, and a demon lord like Dagrel couldn't be that unskilled. I suppose I'll need to watch out for him, too. Now another one came in, a handsome, muscle-bound man decked out in some real fancy-looking thread. He was tall, if not as tall as Dagrel, and his facial features looked like they'd been chiseled. His short, curly blonde hair looked wild on his scalp, perhaps representing his violent personality. To put it simply, he had Hollywood good looks, and he knew how to charm people. I suppose, of course, the thing that stuck out the most were the two fangs visible from his lips. He must have been the demon Lord Valentine, the vampire. He sat to Ramirez's left, so in terms of the seat order, he must have been about as old as Dagrel. That, or perhaps he just took over for whoever he replaced. Not that seat assignments mattered that much. What struck me more were the pair Valentine brought with him. One was an elderly man, kind of a manservant type, definitely well-trained, unmoving and statuesque. His aura was restrained, revealing nothing, the same strategy I used. The second one, meanwhile, was an eye-catchingly beautiful silver-haired girl who seemed to shine like the sun. Her skin was pale, and she had one red eye and one blue. There was something oddly eerie about this girl, who appeared to be on the cusp of adulthood and was clad in a maid-style dress. Maid dresses are like battle uniforms, as they say, and it wouldn't be odd for this girl to be pretty strong. And these two were both working for this guy. That's a surprise. The girl, in particular, was just letting her gigantic aura out all over the place. But hang on. When our eyes met, I was struck by the most uncomfortable feeling. Maybe I was imagining it, but it seemed like she was changing the nature of her aura at random. Understood. Analyze and assess indicates that the target likely bears more magicules than the demon Lord Valentine. Ah, I knew it. I couldn't read her overall energy count, but it's higher than Valentine's, the guy she's serving. It was very cleverly concealed. If you didn't have an ultimate skill like mine, you'd never spot it. But again, they weren't really intent on hiding it. Like Guy, they wanted to assess you, see whether you spotted it or not. Could this girl be the real Demon Lord? Or perhaps the previous holder of this seat, the Demon Lord that retired out? Maybe this is that Milas, the vampiress, that even Veldora had high praise for. The changeover happened more than 1,500 years ago, so perhaps not too many Demon Lords knew about that. Or did, but were keeping mum about it. Or didn't care. Either way, better be careful. Valentine, the current Demon Lord, was no pushover himself. He had a heroic sort of ambition, even more than an untransformed Carillon, so there was no reason to doubt his strength. And if that wasn't enough, she had that freaky girl with her. If it was her domain that got burned to ash, it wouldn't be strange for her to despise Veldora at all. I resisted the urge to yell, "Why'd you have to piss that lady off?" At least there was one saving grace. Who wouldn't mind dying by the hand of such a beautiful figure? Quite a few people, I imagine, but I'll just have to hope she doesn't learn about Veldora and me, or if she does, that I don't have to clean up the mess. After a little while, the fifth person showed up, this one a loner, almost sleepwalking to his post. He had 2 swords on his belt, but that's it. Not much of an arsenal. I got a quick glance at his eyes. They were light blue. His hair was a very dark shade of purple with silver streaks in it. He still looked young to me, maybe even high school age, and he had well-defined facial features, although they were spoiled by his sleepy eyes and general listlessness. He stopped by Ramirez's seat to say hello. "Yeah, man, you're still like the size of a bug, huh? Oh, you trying to start a fight with me? Like you could even handle me, Dino." So person number 5 was Dino. He definitely seemed cut from the same cloth as her. Neither was seriously riled. They seemed to just be screwing with each other. Why would I need to, dumbass? Like, it's totally obvious who would win. I didn't realize you were in that much of a hurry to die. I'm in perfect physical form today. I'll have you know. Hey, haven't you shrunk since last time I saw you? What do you want from me? I only just got reborn recently. When I asked her about it, Ramirez said she had been resurrected around 500 years ago. It would apparently take her several centuries to fully mature. This seemed to convince Diano. Oh, that's why. That's kinda a pain for you, isn't it? But you kept all your memories, right? My memories, yes. But my spirits degenerated along with my body. Ooh, but I'm still the strongest out of all of you. I need a handicap like this, or it's no fun. Guy, I think Ramirez is saying something. Did you hear her just now? Ah! What are you, stupid? I know how to pick my enemies, all right? I'm not saying I could Guy in one punch or anything. A big mouth like her changed her stripes all too quickly. I guess that red-haired guy really was Guy too, and judging by Ramirez's freakout, he really was a menace. I'll just write Guy's dangerous in my internal notepad. It's little notes like these that have saved me from peril more than once. You can't underestimate the power of that. The two kept on talking in hushed voices so as not to rile Guy. They were discussing Beretta and Trainee, Ramirez's guests, and of course Ramirez was bragging up and down about them. Why? Why's a total loner like you got attendance here? D&O complained. You're making me look like a dweeb for showing up alone. Now I can get back at everyone for calling me a little shrimp and a loner, you in particular. Will you see how powerless you are against these guys? Oh, you want us to fight? Is it okay if I rip 'em up? Of course it's not okay. If you break them, I'm seriously going to tell on you to Guy and make him make you pay for it. It's like Guy was her big brother or something. It was breathtaking how quickly she let other people do the dirty work for her. But really, man, these guys are the real deal. Like, I looked at 'em for real just now, and it's like, damn. Beretta and Trainee silently nodded at Dano. They were far too good for Ramirez, really. Right, right. You see, you see, now I've got some muscle to back up my words. Know what I mean? Ramirez stuck out her chest, not that she had much of one, to show up Dano. Their upgrades were entirely my doing, but well. Beretta and Trainee remained silent. They were the perfect attendants. They didn't speak, and the dozing Shian behind me could definitely learn a thing or two from them. Once he finished saying his hellos, Dano stumbled over to his seat. It was next to Valentine's, making him another member of the old guard. Dano ignored Valentine entirely as he sat down and immediately put his head on the table and started sleeping. That seemed kind of rude. Maybe demon lords didn't make it a habit to say hi to one another, and all those put-downs with Ramirez were the exception to the rule. Dino couldn't have acted less interested in being here. Showing up was enough for him, it seemed, but falling asleep without even bothering to read the room was, in a way, incredibly self-centered. Fearless, too. I suppose that act had to be backed up with some actual ability. Hopefully, let's go with that. He was jamming my skills a bit, so I couldn't be sure of what he had. He stared at me with his half-open eyes whenever I tried analyzing him, so he had to have noticed. That banter with Ramirez made me think he was pretty chill, but I definitely shouldn't put my guard down. Given the rapport he seemed to have with Ramirez, though, I hoped I didn't have to make him my enemy. The next one, through the door, was the Empress of the Harpies, the demon Lord Frey. Milim told me about her, and let me tell you, she was explosively erotic. I wondered how she flew with those breasts. They must generate a ton of wind resistance. Oops. My mind's going off track. But can you blame me? That was just the sheer impact of her appearance. Once she stepped inside, her eyes turned first to Miriam's empty seat and then to me. Even the way she turned her head was mesmerizing. I mean, come on, and when she passed by, oh, what a wonderful aroma she had on her. As I basked in this, I felt something sinister behind my back. Xion was clearly peeved. Must have noticed I was letting that perfume get the best of me. Well, spotted Xion. Riling her any further was too scary a concept to entertain, so I reset my mind and got back to business. Her magicule count wasn't anything to write home about. Maybe smaller than Xion's or Benemaru's. Of course, Xion could probably line up well with Valentine at this point, so I'm not saying it was that tiny. Quality, not quantity. It'd be foolish to judge on this alone. In terms of chest size, meanwhile, it was really hard to pick a winner. Oops. Better not think about that. If I had to guess, maybe she had a lot of hidden skills. That was the kind of concerning vibe I got. What was worth noting were her attendants. One was another big-breasted harpy on the same level as Frey. She was young, and her body was about as lascivious as they come. The other was a large man, his magical energy on par with Frey's. He had huge, eagle-like wings sprouting from his back, so he must have been a male harpy. He was a measure smaller than Dagrel, but otherwise could give Valentine a run for his money in muscles and good looks, although the lion mask on his face made the latter part unclear. Wait. Lion? Report. According to my analysis and assessment. Yeah. No way, right? I mean, this guy felt totally different from Carilon. It had to be some other guy. I didn't need Raphael to spell it out for me. I'm not that dumb. There was no way the owl Carilon would attend Walpurgis with such an obvious ploy. He'd be more careful with it, taking pains to act prudently. They say there are at least 3 people in the world who look exactly like you, and I'm sure that's the story with this guy too. As I observed them, I was struck by the odd feeling that a chilly wind was blowing over me. I turned to find a blonde-haired beauty coming in, blessed with looks that only the gods themselves could have given her. She walked right up to me. You are Rimuru? Yeah, but... I thought about saying, yeah, but who you? At first, I definitely didn't know her, but then it dawned on me. There were 4 demon lords left. Caroline was missing, and that just left Clayman, Milim, and Leon. Leon was blonde-haired, I think, and beautiful enough that people called him the Platinum Devil Hump. Oh, you're Leon? Did you need something? Yes, I am Leon. And no, I need nothing from you. The sight of you brought back some memories is all. It was him. He was beautiful, so much so that you could easily mistake him for a woman. In my past life, I probably would have been jealous enough to wish for him to get hit by a truck. He was formerly human, I was told, but kept a majestic presence about him, the majesty of a demon lord. And I brought back memories? I suppose my face was essentially Shizu's at a young age. So Leon must have. Shizu's dead, Leon. Seeing me simply conjured up old memories of Shizu in his mind. I know, he coldly stated. And of course she would be. She took in Ifrit, but refused to become a magic-born. She asked me to punch you out for her. Mind letting me do that? I just kind of blurted it out. I wasn't trying to start stuff. I just didn't like how Leon was talking about her. It was maybe a little too direct, but Leon handled it with calm composure. No, thank you. I wanted her to live as a human being. I even gave her Ifrit as a farewell gift. I see no reason why I deserve a beating for it. What a disappointment. I figured he'd be enraged, but he just calmly fired back at me. But I do have a bit of an interest in you. If you have an issue with me, I'll happily invite you to come visit. You can turn down the offer, of course, if you think it's a trap. Talk about a one-sided deal. He was basically daring me to chicken out. I had to accept it. All right. I'll do that. Feel free to send an invitation if you get around to it. I didn't say anything more after that. Leon nodded, looking a little annoyed. I will. Assuming you walk out of this meeting hall alive, that is. With that blunt rejoinder, Leon settled down in the seat just to my left. It was his way of saying our conversation was over. For now, I was fine with that. I got to tell him about Shizu, and I now knew that Leon wasn't out to antagonize me. At least, not here at the council. He wouldn't have said yes to that invitation thing if he was. Maybe it was just postponing the dispute for later, but right now, I wanted to focus on Clayman as my enemy. These proceedings all unfolded in the hour after we reached the meeting hall at midnight. It looked like the older demon lords had been guided in first, with me getting a head start because I happened to be traveling with Ramiri. It wasn't any official rule, though, given that people like Leon could travel here themselves. All that remained were Clayman and Milim. And just when I thought the council was about to begin, Benimaru tossed a thought communication my way. Sir Rimuru, may I brief you for a moment? This hall seemed like it was in another dimension of sorts, but I guess this link with Benimaru still worked. Understood. A soul circuit has been established with the monsters under your command. The link is using this to allow your conscious to interact with them. Oh, that sort of thing. I guess this soul circuit got hooked up with the gifts I handed out to everyone for my evolution. It didn't seem as robust as the connection I had with Veldora, but it was good enough for talking at least. So I asked what was up. Apparently the battle ended less than an hour after it began, incredibly lopsided and pretty much as we planned it. Our side had numerous casualties, but no deaths. Clayman's forces had at least 1,000 killed in action and over 3,000 wounded. That was fewer deaths than I expected, but in this world where you can always get healed as long as you stayed alive, that much was a given. Still, that was a massive, overwhelming victory. We managed to take some prisoners as well, so I couldn't ask for much more. Yamza, the enemy commander, had turned into Charybdis for some strange reason, but Benimaru was kind enough to vaporize the guy for me. Apparently, I'm not really sure what all that meant, so I just kind of glossed over it for now. Or I wanted to. But how did he deal with Charybdis's magic interference? Understood. A number of arts and skills, combined with the unique skill-born leader, allowed him full control over Hellflare. So he used control beyond what magic interference could handle to hit it with a direct, massive wave of heat. Easy for me to say, but that has to require a hell of a lot of talent. Benimaru's gotten stronger than I even imagined. Pretty hot stuff. One factor we didn't expect was the Dragon Faithful. They were reportedly a pretty formidable fighting force, as you'd expect from Milim's followers. We didn't lose anyone to them because they weren't really out there seeking to kill, but I guess it was my bad for not thinking about them. I figured a force of 100-odd was no big deal, but I was wrong. Wars in this world depended more on the powers of a few than the many, but my conventional wisdom from my old world was making me forget that. Lucky thing that didn't result in any major breakdown. I'd have to be more careful next time. Based on Benimaru's report, we had a general idea of Clayman's story. The force led by Yamza was marching on the pretext of investigating Carillan's betrayal. They wanted to collect evidence that he backstabbed the other demon lords, killed one of Clayman's top leaders, and was connected to me. Well, not collect, more like concoct. With our victory today, that line was cut off. I didn't know what kind of excuses he would come up with here, but I didn't imagine they would be well received by any other demon lord. Of course, I intended to kill off Clayman in the end, and I was prepared to do the same to anyone who got in my way. Let's just try to steer this so I'd secure victory here in the easiest way possible. I'll be counting on you, Raphael. Raphael's raring to go too. That's a relief. Oops, here's another report from Zoe. Sounds like they've captured Clayman's headquarters. Man, there is just no mercy with that guy. Hakuro pitched in a hell of an effort too, but apparently Shuna shined the brightest in the fight. Also, it turns out that I now have an army of undead for some reason. I sort of missed the plot on that, and so I was being oddly vague about the whole thing, simply stating Lady Shuna will explain the details later. The most important thing, though, was that Carillon wasn't being held in Clayman's castle. Plus, we discovered the castle's treasuries, so we've called upon Geld to begin the transport process. The room included some evidence linking Clayman to the moderate jesters, which I think should help your case. Wow, no mercy. We're even pillaging Clayman's treasure vault. That doesn't count as theft, does it? Oh, well. No point sweating the small stuff. We'll just call it collecting damages for all the trouble Clayman gave us. There's reportedly a lot, which should help our own budget out greatly. More important, however, was that dossier of evidence. Benimaru had sent some over for me, and so I had discovered some more. All of it was now safely received in my stomach, and with it I should be able to shut down the basis for any excuse he comes up with. It'd be important to make myself look good around here. So, much quicker than I expected, we had thoroughly and completely crushed Clayman's force. It had remained to be seen how he'd approach this council, but let's try using these developments to my advantage. And then, just as I finished reading the reports, Clayman finally appeared before me. He was more handsome than I pictured him, and high-strung. His clothing looked expensive, and I suppose he placed a lot of importance on his appearance because he was sporting a whole array of unique equipment that would make him a more than decent fighter. It certainly befitted his image as a demon lord not to be trifled with. What struck me the most, however, was the fox he was carrying in his arms. It was packed to the gills with magicules and mystical force, maybe even up to demon lord levels. That was one of his attendants, and I suppose a demon lord's servants had to be pretty damn powerful too. That, and I tried running an analyze and assess on him, and something interesting caught my eye there. I didn't want to coast on this just because we had occupied his HE. It was important to finish him off, right? Anyway, Milim followed behind him, completing the night's attendee list. All were real monsters, ready to burn you at a moment's notice. Doing the once-over on Leon produced nothing useful either. It was kind of funny, seeing Raphael say that it couldn't analyze something. It meant he had an ultimate skill of his own, something on the same level as mine. Then I made a realization. Guy had let me read fake info, but was that his way of fending off ultimate skills? If I couldn't use my ultimate to analyze something, it meant the target had an ultimate too. That may be why he was feeding me a bunch of nonsense instead. I just happened to know it was fake nonsense because Raphael was smart enough to see that if it hadn't noticed, I could easily have been tricked. This meant, of course, that guy had an ultimate skill as well. I suspected Milas did too, and Leon definitely did. An ultimate was several orders of magnitude more powerful than a unique skill requiring an intersection of one's attributes, luck, and a plethora of incidental condition. They were rare, uncommon enough that even a true, awakened demon lord may not have one, and all were great as a last resort ace in the hole. That was why I needed to be extra careful here. That and, it was safe to assume Guy knew I possessed an ultimate now. Big mistake. My lack of experience playing this game screwed me there. I was dealing with some of the orneriest demon lords out there. I should be more on the alert. Still, what's done is done. It wasn't a lethal mistake either. I just needed to figure out how to deal with it. It's easy to hide mind-reading skills, just as Gazelle did. Guy still didn't know what type of skill I had, so I probably didn't need to be too hung up about it. Hell, I could even use this to make them think I'm a fool. To be exact, I would direct Raphael to hide everything at all costs, but maybe show off one ultimate skill that was okay to reveal as my trump card. That way, I could still keep a few cards hidden at all times, right? It was a gutsy bit of subterfuge, but I was safe in pulling it off with the 4 ultimate skills I enjoyed. I was planning on kicking up one hell of a storm in the upcoming battle against Clayman anyway, which would make the debut up. Suggestion. Hiding Beelzebub, Lord of Gluttony, would be difficult. Yeah, I think you're right. It was a great offensive and defensive weapon, capable of consuming and destroying nearly any attack thrown at it. Predation was a pretty core battle tactic for me, so revealing Beelzebub seemed like a good idea. Let's go with that as my main battle weapon, keeping my other skills hidden until otherwise needed. I suppose I'm glad that I noticed the need for something like this early on. If I got out of here safely, I'd need to rethink my battle tactics a little. No point being reluctant to use my skills if it wound up killing me. After that moment of regret, I saw one of the most amazing sights of my life. "Move it, you half-wit!" Out of nowhere, Clayman closed fist punched Milim. That Milim. "Sit yourself down, you stupid dunce," he said, ruthlessly bossing her around. I thought I'd explode in anger, but I held it in. Not yet, not yet. Just a bit longer. I have to hold back until I have the chance to declare it all, following the rules. But what on earth happened to Milim? Milim, the destroyer? If it was Clayman being punched, well, that'd just be Milim being Milim. But this? Oh man, I fear for his safety. And yet, despite this bout of violence, Clayman didn't look like he'd be decapitated anytime soon. Milim did nothing to resist or complain about his treatment. She just followed his orders and sat at her seat. This is weird. Is she under his control after all? I may have to consider the worst-case scenario here. And to add insult to injury, some of the other demon lords, Dagrel and Dino included, were looking similarly flummoxed at this. Guy was stone-faced. I don't know what he was thinking. Clayman, meanwhile, was looking like he was king of the world, his superiority complex written all over his face. It made my anger burn all over again. Don't expect your death to be an easy one, Clayman. You'll pay for hitting my friend. And with that oath to myself, Clayman's death was now set in stone. I had no intention of forgiving him, no matter the excuse. But there was no need for panic. The council had only just begun. The event was attended by a total of 9 people, minus Carillon. Lord of Darkness, Guy Crimson, Demon, Destroyer, Milim Nava, Dragonoid, Labyrinth Master Ramirez, Pixie, Earthquake Dagrel, Giant, Bloody Lord Roy Valentine, Vampire, Sleeping Ruler Dino, Fallen, Sky Queen Frey, Harpy, Marionette Master Clayman, Walking Dead, Platinum, Saber, Leon, Cromwell, Ex-Human, and then me, the subject of this council, the slime who dare call himself Demon Lord. Rain, the maid in Guy's service, made all the above introductions in her clear, loud voice. Leon was the one who piqued my interest the most. I seem to remember his nickname being the Platinum Devil, but now he was acting all cool and calling himself the Platinum Saber. He certainly looked more the part of a dashing swordsman, but who thought up these nicknames anyway? They didn't make them up themselves, did they? Well, I probably shouldn't comment, given my track record for naming things. Let's let that topic die on the vine. After the intros ended, Clayman stood up as the host. All right. First, thanks to all of you for answering my invitation and coming here. It is now time to begin our festival. I hereby declare this Walpurgis Council convened. Thus, with the chance for cataclysmic events electrifying the air around us, the event kicked off. Taking advantage of his position as chairman, Clayman started things off by going into a speech, eyeing all of us in order and looking supremely satisfied with himself. His eyes stopped for just a moment when they reached Valentine, but maybe I imagined it. That's got nothing to do with me anyway. Leon was seated to my left. The chair on my right was empty, and to its right were Clayman's and the absent Carillon's seat. Clayman went on for a while, explaining matters with an obvious sense of pride. and I diligently listened to all of it. Here's the executive summary. The demon lord Carilon enticed me into declaring myself a demon lord. This allegation is backed up by the fact that Carilon's armies are stationed in our town. He then incited the kingdom of Farmus into attacking the great forest of Jura, requesting my cooperation to fend them off and using that as an excuse to meddle with human nation. After defeating Farmus, I assumed the title of Demon Lord, enjoying Carilon's support behind the scene. This kind of unauthorized collusion violated the Demon Lord's agreement. He was better prepared to make this argument than I gave him credit for. It was all a bunch of nonsense, totally ignoring the actual timeline of events, but proving that would be difficult. All of this happened at the same time as the Demon Lords withdrew from their mutual non-aggression agreement for the Forest of Jura, as he bluntly put it. There was no excusing that. As if, I cared about that. That is the testimony I have received from Majoran, one of my advisors. However, upon briefing me about this, she was murdered by that fool over there, Rimuru. Thus, I decided to exact my revenge. What is he, thespian? If not, he missed his calling. He almost convinced me, Juran's pretty alive right now. Rimuru was conspiring with Carilon to make an attempt upon my life, and with her last gasps of breath, Majoran sent me a magical missive to inform me of the plot. He paused a moment, pretending to be overcome with emotion. His handsome looks certainly made it a moving sight, but it mostly served to rankle my nerve. So he's saying I tried to kill him to claw my way into a demon lord's seat? And it was Carilon who engineered it all? I have to say, that's a pretty impressive story to make up. If you actually knew Carilon and how relentlessly in your face and warlike he was, it'd be enough to make you blurt out laughing. Clayman's tales continued meandering here and there, but basically he was accusing Carilon of betraying the council. This enraged Milim enough to destroy the beast kingdom of Eurazania, and Carilon was now dead. Dead? Not missing? That seemed unnatural enough to worry me, but I kept on listening. Milim had taken action out of concern for Clayman, but he had rebuked her, since wrecking nations without any evidence was generally frowned upon. Ever since, she had fostered an affinity for Clayman, relying on and trusting in him, and with his advisor Majoran dead, Clayman decided to send out a force to secure evidence linking me to Carilon. In addition, he wished to use this council to discuss how to handle me after I tried to kill him and declare my rights as Demon Lord. The tale he wove couldn't have possibly painted him in a better light. I was impressed, but man, he just kept on talking forever. I wanted to counter his excuses with a little logic of my own. My intention was to show my innocence, prove that my actions were justifiable, and then crush Clayman after all. That was why I was sitting here politely and hearing him out, but my patience was reaching its limit. Could we maybe get started soon? Listening to his tale, I had noticed a pretty decisive hole in his logic. His evidence. His entire dossier of evidence was made up of testimony, all from a single witness. Majoran, the ring finger, who had sworn absolute loyalty to Clayman. It made me laugh. Not only was she alive, but the Majoran-related evidence he presented was as flimsy as a plastic bag. I suppose he ran out of time to fabricate anything more substantial than that. All in all, it seemed like I could build a pretty credible case for myself. I already had all the evidence I needed. "That concludes my case," Clayman bellowed, looking all self-important. Hopefully, everybody in the room now fully understands that Rimuru, that trifling magic born over there, is nothing more than a charlatan posing as a demon lord. I believe that a purge is in order here. The other demon lords must have been pretty darn patient if they were willing to put up with all this prattling. Some of them had already nodded off, it seemed. I guess it was okay, as long as you didn't bother anyone. The only rule, I surmised, was that you had to shut up and listen to the guy who convened the council to start with. Now we were all free to state our own opinions, and I was ready for it. Rainey, who must have been taking the MC post, turned her eyes to me. We will now listen to testimony from our visitor. Oh, finally. I had been patient long enough. No more of this clowning around. So, Clayman, right? You're a liar. What? What? I mean, honestly speaking, I don't give a crap about demon lords. That story about Carillan luring me into this is a load of bees, and farmers attacked us out of their own greed. Those two things aren't related to each other at all. Clayman gave me an irritated sneer. Ah, who would ever believe trite excuses like that? One of my most senior advisors has been killed. Here we go. Just what I've been waiting for. Yeah, Majoran, right? Well, I didn't kill her. In fact, she's alive. Pa! Of all the ludicrous. Whoa, woo, ho, hear me out. Pretty much all of that speech was based off verbal testimony and your own conjecturing. And maybe that be enough to deal with some rank and filer, but it won't work on me. Majoran, your supposed tipster, is under my protection. That's why I'm not letting you mess with me, and that's why your testimony has absolutely no credibility whatsoever. Going into that much detail made even Clayman go a bit pale, but he had no intention of ceding his point. You're willing to stoop to such lows, then? Did you meddle with her corpse and install some evil spirit inside? It was a spur-of-the-moment accusation, but not an insane one. In a world as rich with magic as this one, you could even make the dead seem alive if you wanted. Talk about freaky. And another reason why you couldn't trust oral testimony like that. Well, I said, I wasn't planning to believe anything you said anyway. That's why I figured I'd come over there and beat you up myself, but I wound up changing my mind. Before this council began, my forces gathered some evidence of their own. I flashed a smile as I attempted to show him up. This enraged him, I could tell. He was easier to toy with than I thought. What are you trying to say? If you want to die that badly, just come out and say it. Calm down a sec, I said, cutting him off. I told you I have evidence. I then produced several crystal balls from my pocket, teleporting them to the center of the round table and magically triggering them one after the other. Each one contained its own video image, including one featuring me fighting the Orc general and another shot from Gelmud's point of view. Shuna had found them all in the ancient castle Clayman called home. One of them, meanwhile, contained footage from the battle fought just today. It was taken by Benimaru from his vantage point overseeing the entire landscape, and it contained some really juicy stuff. Stop. Stop that. Please, Sir Clayman, stop this at once. Right there, in the ball, Clayman's field general was screaming and being transformed into an incomplete Charybdis. And that wasn't all. This is quite a surprise. I was expecting Yamza to turn tail and flee, but imagine Clayman's forces are destroyed, the missions a failure, the losses immense. Well, Laplace warned him, Clayman can't blame anyone for it but himself. We'll need to brief him about this. That conversation between the two weird jesters Geld and Phobio had witnessed was all on video. Probably Footman and Tear from the moderate jesters, I assumed. With Laplace's name popping up, it had to be them. That and him. I thought Clayman was behind all this, but it seemed like there was someone else. Maybe. Understood. It is estimated that all of this is connected. I thought so. Whoever it was that tried to make me fight Hinata was also controlling Clayman. That explains the timing. While I was busy fighting the Western Holy Church, this figure had Clayman spur farmers into combat, and then that whole tragedy unfolded. Maybe I could understand all this, even if I didn't appreciate it much. But you went too far, Clayman, so I'm taking you down. Don't resent me for it. In this world, it's survival of the fittest. I proudly beamed at him. This is what real evidence looks like, Clayman. Having this stuff with me definitely made things proceed more quickly, but even if I didn't have it, it would have turned out the same way. I was going to crush him with my own force anyway, so all I really needed was something to shoot down his lame excuses with. It wasn't a matter of good or evil. It was all about keeping up appearances. Besides, I had real evidence here, and I saw no reason for anyone to complain about that. You couldn't. All of this was fabricated. Fake images, built with magic to prop up your lies. How could you be so base, you slime? Lies. They aren't lies, you dummy. Your army's all done. And you're joining them next. Clayman turned toward me, face scrunched up in anger. Everyone, you can't listen to this trickster. This slime, Rimuru, is a notorious bluffer. He undoes the seal on Veldora to destroy the farmer's force, and then he parades around pretending he did the act himself. He's just a little slime, all bark and no bite, and it is simply outrageous that he dares to deceive us all in the proud demon lord family. It was an impassioned speech, as if he wasn't the one relying on others to save his ass, as if he wasn't the little one. If he was acting right now, like I said, he was a pretty good actor. Look, Clayman. This was Dagrul, his voice just as grounded and dignified as his appearance. Wasn't expecting him to speak up. Didn't you say just now that Rimuru goaded the kingdom of Farmus into attacking? If the news of Veldora's resurrection is true, why would he execute it in such a roundabout fashion? All right. Allow me to explain. Clayman looked lost for a moment, but then opened his mouth again, ready to commit to this tale. The story of the attempt to collect people's souls to awaken into a true demon lord. I suppose he wanted to keep that under his hat so that the other demon lords wouldn't get the jump on him, but Dagrul had forced him to fess up. This low-class, unwitting slime must have had the incredible good fortune to acquire the traits of a demon lord. But he must have let it go to his head, for he then travelled to the human realms to investigate the truth behind what he obtained. That drove him to set off a war with the humans on a whim, using the banished Veldora to stage a brutal genocide. He was doing his best to convince the table, complete with overblown theatrical hand motions. Leaving someone like this free to maraud again would damage our very reputations as demon lords. I believe he must be purged, but what is your opinion? So cough up some evidence, I retorted. Not that you have any, do you? Everything you said was just a bunch of wouldn't it be nice if junk, and you still think they're all gonna swallow it? Clayman gave me another unamused glare. It didn't bother me. I was already sick of putting up with his pathetic accusations. Why does some slime claiming the might of a dragon for himself think he has the right to defy us? There is no way you could ever become a demon lord. Whether I'm a slime or not doesn't matter, and besides, Veldora's my friend. I'm not here to listen to you go on with your bullshit, all right? Can we get to the point, please? Just admit it. Phobio, the magic born in that video, just showed us how Charybdis was resurrected at your demand, right? As those jesters guided him to. And now one of your own men transformed into Charybdis and went insane. That's what I'm talking about when I say solid evidence. If you think I'm bluffing, go right ahead, 'cause you'll be thinking that all the way to the grave. I shot to my feet, kicking up the adjacent seat as I did, and tried to look as threatening as possible. Casually, I placed my hand on part of the round table in front of me, and in an instant the large table disappeared. Nothing to be surprised about. I just stored it in my Beelzebub. Now we had a decent-sized space to work with. The chair I kicked up sailed in the direction of Clayman, smashing against the wall behind him with a loud crash. This didn't faze the demon lords either. Only Clayman was unnerved by it. All of you are willing to put up with this reckless violence. He is making light of us all. Should we not be exacting our judgment upon him at once? What, all of them? I always knew he was a wimp. I walked to the middle of where the table used to be. Yeah, maybe you're right. Like I said, I don't care about you demon lords at all. All I want is to build a nation that I can enjoy living in. I need the humans' cooperation for that, so I decided to offer my protection to them. Anyone who gets in the way of that, whether a person or a demon lord or the Holy Church, is my enemy. Just like you are, Clayman. I explained my ideals to the group with far more passion than Clayman could ever manage. What? And if you call that reckless violence, I said as I sized him up, what would you call taking over someone's mind while we're all chatting at Walpurgis? Did he think I wouldn't notice? In the midst of that whole speech, that little sneak was launching mind control attacks at me. If I had to guess, he was trying to dominate my consciousness. Too bad it didn't work. Raphael was guarding me the whole time, so I had it fully taken care of. At least I had a justifiable cause on the table, so to speak. That was now in the ears of all the demon lords, and Clayman had already started trying to strike me. If any of them wanted to oppose me, it was now or never. Time to switch over to real action. I had asked the question to Clayman, but it was answered by someone else. Guy, the red-haired demon lord, seated on the far side of the chamber. Indeed, he said with a charmingly attractive smile, in order to keep things fair, we are only allowed to appeal to others through our own voices. But, Guy, he is insulting us all. Shut up, I interrupted. If you don't like it, then it's between you and me, isn't it? He is correct, Clayman. If you call yourself a demon lord, then use your powers to defeat that magic boar. And you, Guy looked straight at me. Do you intend to declare yourself a demon lord? Yep, yeah. I'm already leader of the great forest of Jura, and as far as anyone on the ground's concerned, I am one. No matter the path we had to take to get there, I imagined they would all accept that I'd teamed with the storm dragon to rule the forest. There was no point denying that Tempestians were already calling me Demon Lord. Very well. And we have an array of witnesses here as well. If you can win against Clayman before us, I will allow you to adopt the title. So beating Clayman ties up all these little strings, huh? This was exactly the development I hoped for. Clayman began to laugh just as suddenly as he regained his composure a moment ago. Exasperating. I simply attempted a little trick because I didn't want to dirty my own hands, and now look at the storm I've unleashed. What a mistake. He was smiling the whole time. Did he have a screw loose? His thin, almost inhuman smile was still clinging to life as he looked at me. And then, quietly, "You're up, Milim." Tension raced across the chamber. Even the demon lords were nervous, although some were maintaining perfect calm as always. My eyes turned to Milim. There was the source of Clayman's confidence, the belief that he had her under his control that he exercised right at that moment. So she was? Wow, what a big mouth. After everything you said, you're relying on someone else? And bringing in Milim after you punched her out to make her do your bidding? I tried provoking him a little, but not even Clayman was stupid enough to bite. Don't be ridiculous. I will be fighting too, of course. Is there any issue with that, Guy? Not at all, Clayman. If Milim is aiding you on her own free will, I will not stop her. This wasn't good. Clayman I had a handle on, but Milim was deadly. With Guy so readily granting permission, there was no way I could dodge having to fight her. Even with what I could do by now, I didn't like my prospects against her, and besides, I wanted to help her out. No, I will help her out. Just then, the unmoving, doll-like Milim made two fists and struck an overwrought, triumphant pose, or so it looked like to me. Maybe not. It was just for an instant. I dunno. Man, poor lady. Don't worry, Malim, I swore in my heart. I'll get you out of there. Well, all right. I was planning to rescue Milim anyway, so I think I'll just undo that brainwashing trick you pulled on her, by force if I need to. Enough of your prattle. You will die in despair. The only one dying here is you, Clayman. I think one of my officers would make a better match against the likes of you. Fighting you myself would just make me a bully. Clayman's face stiffened. A thick black aura began to float out of him, perhaps generated by his anger. You can't be a demon lord unless you know how to intimidate your foe, I guess. Not that it was that impressive, but between his rage and panic, that should open up some weak points to exploit. Shion would be fighting him in my place, and I was sure she'd be able to take advantage of that. I motioned with my eyes to Shion. She immediately sprang into action. In a moment, she was upon Clayman, launching an attack. Concentrating her aura around her fist, she used that single instant to land a good 30 or so blows on him. Then she turned back at me with a look of relief and asked, "Is this all right?" Aren't you supposed to ask before you start clobbering?" All I did was give you a sidelong glance. That was supposed to be, you get it, right? Clayman's all pissed off, so get him while he's off guard kind of glance. I wasn't expecting you to beat the crap out of him before I blinked again. Does the expression off guard mean anything to you? Well, so be it. What's done is done. The force of the strikes propelled Clayman right in front of me, in the middle of the circle. You bastard!" he shouted as he stood up. He was tougher than I thought. That black aura around him thickened, instantly healing his injuries. It was far faster than what the Orc Lord could do, but that was pretty much normal for a Demon Lord. Either way, it made Clayman accept Shion as an enemy, so we were still more or less sticking to the script. "If that's what you want," he said, "then I'll kill both of you." Then the fox that had jumped down to his feet swelled up in size. "Report. This is believed to be the 9-head mentioned by Majoran." "Oh, yeah, she did say that, huh? So it was another servant of his, not some pet." Then another figure emerged from Clayman's shadow wrapped in a black robe. He had 2 servants, and I had Shion in battle mode. Ranga was similarly enlarged now, ready to pounce. Wait. Hang on. We're outnumbered if Milim is joining in now. No need to panic yet. That's what Beretta is for. The moment we all stepped into the circle where the table used to be, it was shut away from the audience by a barrier. The area within it exploded in size, the surrounding chairs seemingly far away and distant. They must have installed some kind of enclosing barrier to protect the other demon lords. I kind of expected this, given that they created that whole fancy event space and everything but Beretta. One of my supports didn't make it in. Oh, crap! I didn't see that pitfall coming, but just as I thought it, Clayman started screaming, "Milim, kill him!" And she was ready to do just that. There was no doubting the fist coming my way. The force behind it was deadly. But after expanding my senses 1,000,000 times over with Mind Accelerate, there was a chance I could avoid it. It wasn't impossible, but I didn't have much leeway to mess up. A white-hot ball of energy scraped past my cheek. The speed amazed me. Even with Raphael running at full speed, I still couldn't fully avoid it. If I even thought about a counter, it'd leave me open enough for a lethal strike. The only thing I could do then was try my hardest to keep up with Milim while I concentrated on breaking her mind control. Even so, my detect magic was telling me about events in the circle. It was almost scary, the way I could juggle all of that. Too bad I couldn't bask in it right now. Shion was fighting Clayman, but it was 2-on-1 with that black-robed figure in the mix, so I couldn't say she had the advantage. Ranga, meanwhile, was pitted against 9-head, and I thought he was winning, but then Those 3 tails on the fox spirit transformed into 2 magical beasts. All of a sudden, it was 3 on 1. I, meanwhile, had Milim to deal with. There really was nothing I could do. Nothing besides pray that everyone stayed alive until I could finish running analyze and assess on her. So, you guys take care of yourselves. Got it? Got it? Beretta quickly set to action, asking Ramirez if it could join the battle. Ramirez, for her part, wasn't about to turn her toy down. Ooh, Guy? I'm with Rimuru, all right? So I want my Beretta to be part of that, too. No, he coldly replied, paying her as little attention as possible. Why not? Why not? Mum. Mere attendants aren't allowed to join a battle between demon lords. This is a dispute between that slime and Clayman, is it not? You have no reason to join in. What you talking about? Milim's in there, ain't she? Oh, she's fine. So what's with that? Why's she fine and I'm not? Guy rolled his eyes, tiring of this. Ramirez was always something of a loudmouth. Once she got started, it was hard to make her stop. She had never brought attendance to a council before, so Guy realized she must have had some reason to do it this time. Considering Milim's involvement, letting Ramirez join in would just add to the chaos. He had isolated the battle zone in part to prevent this, because Milim likely has her own motivations for this. Now, will you shut up? Oh, so you think there's not a thought in my mind about it at all? Is there? Besides, Guy gave Beretta a look. Who has your attendant sworn its loyalties to? Your other companion seems ready to devote her all to protecting you, but I'm not so sure about this Beretta. It's faithful to you, but not completely so. You want me to trust someone so suspicious? He had spotted the truth. Beretta's loyalties weren't only to Ramirez, and as one of Ramirez's closest friends, he wasn't willing to allow an attendant who was weighing its master on the scales against someone else. My master is on the balance, yes, Beretta freely admitted. There was Rimuru, its master. Rimuru, its creator, but also Ramirez, its current leader. She was a ridiculously optimistic, rash, curious, even cowardly demon lord, but Beretta had grown to love her. It didn't even mind all that abusive manipulation. Rimuru had wished for Ramirez to be protected and for Beretta to serve her as well. There was no contradiction at all in its mind. There was just one thing. Beretta wanted to repay the favor to Rimuru. It was once a demon, and Rimuru had granted it both a new life and a new mission. It felt a need to make up for that. And if Lady Ramirez wishes to save that figure as much as I do, it spoke to Guy without any fear. Oh, audacious enough to address me, are you? Interesting. May I trust this golem at its word, Ramirez? The fairy gave him a look that indicated no answer was needed, but she gave one anyway. Ooh, yeah, of course. So you go help out Rimuru in my place, all right, Beretta? So it will take action if you wish it to, then? You've obtained quite a good attendant for yourself, Ramirez. Nah, not obtained. We're friends. Me, and Beretta, and Trainee, and Rimuru, too. She smiled contentedly. Like everyone, a whole lot? Guy wasn't quite sure what Ramirez was trying to say, but if she was fine with that, so was he. Well, all right, he reluctantly extended a hand to open a hole in the barrier. I thank you, Rouge, Beretta said. Sure. Don't call me that. I'll allow you to call me Guy. But I refuse to allow you to recognize another master apart from Ramirez from now on. Is that all right? Granting this honor meant Guy saw Beretta as strong enough to live up to his own standard. Now, he was asking it to pick a master. If it attempted to weasel out of the question, he intended to smash it up on the spot. But It immediately agreed. In that case, Guy, I will swear my loyalty to Lady Ramirez exclusively from now on. So please allow me to be of service to Sir Rimuru at least once. Guy was a tad surprised. Demons, as a rule, wanted to be recognized by their masters for their strength. Beretta, meanwhile, didn't seem to see strength as too important. Its standards had gone all haywire. It was a nonconformist. You are fine with that? Yes. Sir Rimuru has servants stronger than myself. That made sense to Guy, but it also confused him. Someone this powerful admitting to not being the strongest out there. I also enjoy conducting research, Beretta continued. The research I do with Lady Ramirez on a daily basis is truly like a dream. Oh, pardon me. My serving Lady Ramirez is part of Sir Rimuru's request. There is no need to worry about that. The words reminded Guy of a demon he knew, the very definition of strange, one who pursued only what personally interested him. If they were part of the same lineage, perhaps demons with dispositions like Beretta's shouldn't be so unexpected, but the demon in Guy's mind rarely birthed other family members. Only an elite few were aware of him at all. Let me ask, what is your lineage like? Beretta winced underneath its mask and laughed. I was one of the least of the greater demons. However, I think you will find very few demons in the same family tree as I. A small lineage. That has to be it, then. Beretta's hair was grey, the colour gone from it, but once upon a time. I see. No wonder you didn't fear me. That family always was self-centered, curious. So someone like you admits there are stronger creatures than yourself. Guy shot a passing glance at Shion and Ranga fighting away, then turned back toward Beretta. Yes, Shion and Ranga were powerful, but he didn't think Beretta was at all behind them. I thank you for the honor, but I still have far to go. As long as the two of them serve Sir Rimuru, if I miss this opportunity, I may never have another one. Yes, true. I understand how you feel. You may go. The barrier already had a hole large enough to wriggle through. Excuse me, then. With an elegant salute, Beretta plunged in. Guy cracked a smile as he watched it go. He had an idea who this would be. So that's it. You're on the move as well, Noir. This was an old friend, one who went away from him ages ago. If this was the type of people he was serving now, the slime-fighting Milim in front of him must be quite the fascinating figure. A nonconformist serving a nonconformist. He basked in joy as he watched the battle, even as he thought he could see its conclusion already. Rimuru was his name. I will have to remember it. Oh, crap. I'm screwed. Who's screwing me? Milim, of course. Dealing with Milim as a foe made Clayman's anger seem like a toddler's tantrum. She hadn't taken the battle form Phobio saw yet, so she still wasn't going all out, but her strength went beyond all common sense. I was already exercising everything I had. Raphael, at least, was really humming along for me. Seriously, if I didn't have that skill, I would have been dead already. So I was fully booked with Milim, but my fighting companions were working hard as well. I had thought being outnumbered might sink us, but now I wasn't so sure. Ranga had summoned 2 star leaders, fellow commander-level Star Wolves, boosting his team so it was 3-on-3. I guess it was possible for him to summon up to 3 at once, but Gopta was using the 3rd one right now, so that was all we had on hand. Still, I think it was enough. Ninehead boasted a massive amount of magical energy, but it didn't seem too experienced in battle. Ranga held the upper hand from start to finish. The 2 magical beasts Ninehead summoned, however, were trickier than I thought. Analyze and Assess told me they were a white monkey and a moon rabbit, respectively. They were both intelligent and capable of attacking in tandem, which made them fiendish in battle. The moon rabbit could control gravity, weighing down everyone in the battle zone. It allowed the white monkey to pummel their foes and Ninehead to finish them off. That was their standard path to victory, but Ranger saw right through it, breaking down their teamwork. If he used one of his stronger finishers, he could have wiped them out instantly, but he was hesitating since Shion might be caught in the crossfire. He had the upper hand, but landing a decisive blow was proving elusive. Shion, meanwhile, well, she was hanging in there, out of pure fighting spirit more than anything. The black robe was hiding an elaborately built magical puppet, and I'm not kidding when I say it looked stronger than Clayman. How do you like Viola, my greatest work of art? Beautiful, is she not? Clayman was boundlessly confident, and I could see why. A real tour de force, although beautiful wouldn't be my choice of words if asked. Not with, all those swords and spears flying out of her. Each one of those projectiles was a unique grade weapon, as was her armor, but this kind of kitchen sink approach wasn't what I would call beauty, really. Whether it was heat, electricity, blizzards, crushing, resonation, or anything else, she had a seemingly limitless supply of every attack type in the world, and she was lobbing it all at her foe. It was nothing to Shaw, however. That was thanks to ultra-speed regeneration, which sucks if you're fighting someone who has it. No matter how much damage she took, Shion could instantly heal back up. Clayman and Viola working together prevented her from going on the attack, but that was just helping fill up Shion's anger gauge. Once that blew up, things were going to get scary. As I thought about that, Shion had someone join her. I apologize for making you wait. Sir Imuru, please utilize my power. Oh, it's Beretta. I don't know how, but it must have broken into this battle zone. I've been waiting for you, Beretta. Yes, sir. This needless meddling, I was just about to turn these fools into a pair of bloody husks. Sean was acting like a sore loser, but I'll just ignore that. Well, don't let up. Smash them! Yes, sir. We were now fully back to the original script. No losing now. The path we took here got a little hairy midway, but with things as they were, our victory was unshakable. The only problem was Milim. She still wasn't going all out. If I could free her, we'd win for sure. My qualms about the future settled. I focused my full consciousness on her. The noise surrounding me disappeared. I sharpened my mind, looking at nothing but Milim. Now, much more clearly than before, I could see the path her fist traced in the air. I focused, using every cell in my body for my calculations. If I lose this, it'd all be meaningless. I had to do whatever it took to release the curse Clayman placed on her. Come on, Raphael. Analyze and assess every inch of her for me. What was that? I'm berating my foes for relying on other people, but using Raphael to solve all my own problems? I don't know where you're getting the wrong idea. Raphael is my power. There isn't a single iota of guilt in my mind. So, yeah, go ahead. Understood. Conducting analyze and assess no results. What do you mean by that? You can't seriously mean that you can't figure out the silly curses Clayman placed on her? No curse-oriented magic found. This is... Dude, how useless can you get? Whenever this happened before, I figured it was because I wasn't concentrating hard enough, but after all that effort, nothing... It couldn't even discover any curse at all. Guess I can't trust Raphael in a pinch. This was bad. Really, really bad. Not to sound all depressed, but the chances of me winning in a knockdown, drag-out brawl with Milim were laughably poor. Well, so be it. I'll just have to hold out until Shion and the rest defeat Clayman. My mind made up, I confronted Milim. I had gotten stronger. She might be both under someone's control and not really trying yet, but I was certainly holding my own against Milim. In the past, I'd be eating dirt before a minute elapsed. Right now, we were at minute 13 or so, and I was still fighting at a full clip. Hey, maybe she'd snap out of it if I just gave her a good sock on the noggin. The thought crossed my mind for just a moment, but I dunno, striking Milim kind of goes against my personal rule. Suggestion. An energy absorption attack using Beelzebub. Oh, that could work. I immediately tried it out. Any direct strike on my body would cause damage, so I was mainly parrying her move. I would be applying just a little bit of force from the side, enough to adjust the paths of her punches and kicks. As I did, I'd use Beelzebub to vacuum up her magicules. This turned out to be pretty effective. Milim reared away from me, a scowl on her face. It was a teeny, tiny amount of damage, but it worked. All of Milim's attacks were protected by her own draconic aura. If I could take that out of the picture just by touching it, I'd gradually be able to sap her stamina. Would I win with this, though? That was another story. If I was focused on winning, I'd need to bust out my full strength, leaving nothing behind, and even then there was no guarantee. Even if I pulled it off, I'd wind up revealing all my hidden abilities to the demon lords watching us. In the big picture, that'd be a defeat. Right now, all I could do was chip away at her like this as I waited for her curse to be undone. Let's hope that Shion can finish off Clayman sooner rather than later. I couldn't say how many back and forth exchanges we went through. I say exchanges, but it was entirely me defending. The rules were intense. One mistake and you're out. But I was still fending her off. A roaring fist from Milim surged past my right cheek. If I didn't focus, I'd never be able to dodge it. A single hit would shatter my body, no doubt. I had infinite regeneration, a healing skill more powerful than even its ultra-speed cousin, but abusing it would drain my magicules too quickly. I could probably regenerate myself after being reduced to goo, but keep that up long enough and I'd run out of stamina first. So focus, focus, focus. Read ahead of Milim's moves. Her right fist had changed in shape. A dragon fang lash disguised as a punch. It glanced past my cheek once again, then decapitate me with the nails on her fingers, like the teeth of a dragon. The correct way to deal with it was not to dodge, but to take it from the side. So I took it, pushing myself with my left hand from the inside out. I could feel a burning pain sear through that hand, an explosion of energy that left it heavily damaged. And that was me avoiding the attack. Trying to take a full frontal blow from her would have been crazy. Absolute power on this level was a kind of finisher in itself, crushing its opponent. I had just learned that the hard way, but if I didn't sacrifice my left hand, I would have been mortally wounded. I was fine with that, but I was really starting to resent the sheer unfairness of this. Then, as if reading my mind, I had an unexpected chance. Right there, as Milim lost her balance, she forced her remaining left hand to snap off a punch. Here we go. Report. It is believed to be a trap. I thought, but it was too late. Leaving Raphael's composed guidance in the dust, I began my attack, grabbing Milim's left hand and attempting to throw her. If she was off balance, I thought I should be able to pick her up on my back and slam her down. But if that was Milim's trap, her hand stopped dead in the air, a carefree grin on her face. A total gotcha! Now! Smile. Oh, I was attempting to twist my body in front of Milim, both hands reaching out for her left arm. I could see all of that with detect magic as if watching it on TV, but it left me totally open. Cornered. Game over. Her fist moved again, and just before she smashed it right against my head, something cut in between us. A dull thud rang out. Where did that come from? That was just mean. I was greeted by a dark-skinned man with blonde hair. Looked a little bit like me. Actually, wait, Veldora. He was curled up on the floor, grabbing at his head and looking like he was in at least some pain. But if taking a punch from Milim only did that to him, I didn't see much need to worry. I took the moment's delay to rebalance and steel myself toward Milim. "Hey, Veldora, why are you in here?" "Gone? What a cruel blow!" "You'll be fine, all right. What's happening in town?" Nothing. That man, Diablo, or whatever it was, came back, so our defense is as strong as ever." "Oh." Diablo was back. There's no way they could have captured Farmus that quickly, but let's focus on Veldora for now. "So, what are you here for?" "If it's to whine at me, then go away." "Why are you being cruel too, Rimuru?" Look, it's about this." He thrust his hands out at me, as if a da sound effect should have been playing behind him. He was holding one of the volumes of manga I gave him, the final volume of a long-running series. "What about this?" I asked, confused. He looked at me, positively indignant. "What do you mean? What about this?" "The story in here's completely different from the rest of the series. Were you playing some kind of trick, taking the ending away from me?" "Ah, yes. Now I remember. Yes, it was a trick. I kind of pulled a prank on him, the idea being that I'd give him the rest of the manga if he followed my orders. Kind of like training a pet, really. I had no idea that was the series I left for him. So he traveled all the way here just because he wanted to read the ending? In this enclosed space in an alternate dimension? I knew I could summon unlimited imprisonment with my ultimate skill, Veldora, Lord of the Storm, but I guess he could too. That learned me, I guess. But that didn't matter. Diablo was already back in town. Might as well make lemonade out of this. All right. Before I give you the real ending, I need you to do me a favor. Mum. What? What? Play with Milim over there for a while. But don't hurt her. Milim? Ah, yes, my brother's only daughter. I haven't met her before, but she's still just a child, isn't she? Very well. I am on my way. I didn't know whether it was the manga or Milim that captured his interest the most, but either way, he agreed. The My Brother's Only Daughter bit captured my interest, but again, everything in due time. Milim herself was looking our way, steeled for anything, and Veldora seemed to be capturing her interest. I could see it in the twinkle in her eyes. Hopefully that meant I was safe leaving for now. Which one was stronger, anyway? I was kind of interested to see, but if Veldora was stronger than me, I was sure he could buy me enough time. There's just no way I can't take advantage of this chance. So with my newfound freedom, I wanted to defeat Clayman and settle the score for good. So how had things gone while I was occupied with Milim? Leaving her and Veldora behind, I turned toward Ranger first, since things seemed most intense with him. "Ranger, you all right?" "Ah, Sir Rimuru, I am fine, but I have a little situation here. Something was up." There didn't seem to be much life to his attacks, and I didn't think it was because he was losing interest. Just as I was about to ask what was up, I picked up on the cause. Me. Help me. Help me. This childlike wailing was leaking out to us via thought communication from Ninehead. The white monkey and moon rabbit were merely trying to protect their shivering master, hence why they kept resisting without admitting defeat. Now I see. Let's help him out. Ranger, hold back the monkey and the rabbit. Don't let them get in my way. Right. He took the monkey while his 2-star leaders handled the rabbit, and I walked towards the snarling Ninehead. This poor young child controlled by Clayman. Report. Analysis indicates a demon dominate curse. Remove. Yes. No. This time at least the curse was discovered and removed quickly. Wish I could have seen some of that talent when I was dealing with Milim. Ah, well. The moment I undid the magic, Ninehead gave a joyous yelp, then settled down to sleep, no doubt exhausted. It was as cute as any baby animal video I had ever seen. Apart from the three tails and the golden color to its fur, it looked exactly like a little fox cub. Ranga was right next to me, growling as menacingly as he could, and, "All right, that was pretty cute too," in a cool way. "Keep this cub safe." "Yes, my master." I gave the cub over to Ranga as I petted him. That took care of his foe. Next, I turned to Beretta, and that confrontation was already over. It was lining up all the unique weapons and armor on the floor, practically beside itself with excitement. "Hey! Hey! What you doing?" "Oh, yes. Hello, Sir Rimuru." It gave me a joyful salute. "It is a pity I could not show myself in action to you, but I have prepared some spoils of war for you." Spoils? Viola, Clayman's greatest work of art, had been taken apart, its pieces strewn all over the place, and now this was Beretta's gift to me. I knew it was pretty strong, but it took down that arsenal like magic born without suffering a scratch. And that wasn't even all. Beretta, no offense, but are you imitating all of Ramirez's bad habits or what? It looked at me, surprised, I think. Its face was hidden behind that mask, so that was only my impression. I thought a word of advice was in order. If this keeps up, Beretta's going to pick up on nothing but her negative trait. I mean, hopefully this is just my imagination, but what are you going to do with all that booty? Well, I thought I would present it to you, Sir Rimuru, and I thought you would accept it and, in exchange, provide a place for Lady Ramirez and me to live. A place to live? I knew Ramirez had an urge to live in our town, but why Beretta? What made you worry about that? Actually, Beretta's explanation floored me, and not in a good way. It sounded like Guy cornered it into choosing a master before allowing him to enter the battle zone. Beretta responded that it would serve Ramirez after helping me out in here, but clever demon that it is, it thought about a way to wiggle out of that. If Ramirez were to move to our town, Beretta would be obliged to follow her, and then it could go through Ramirez to serve me as well. That was its plan. It was one of the flimsiest excuses I ever heard, and it was laying this out like supreme gospel. The word demon couldn't have described him more accurately. Look, I'm serious. You're really starting to resemble Ramirez. It is an honor to hear, although it feels rather little like a compliment. That's 'cause it's not. I swear, I take my eyes off you for a second, and you've grown incredibly shameless. Kind of neat to see this maturation take place, though. Well, we can save that for later. I'll have to think about it. I can't set up something for you guys that easily. Understood, sir. It seemed happy enough with that. I figured we were good for now. That left only Shion to check up on, and that confrontation was right on the cusp of its climax. Clayman was panting for breath as he glared at her, a loathsome look on his face. Shion had all but made him admit to her strength. It might have appeared like they were locked in an intense competition for superiority, but that would be a dreadful mistake. That was because Shion had ultra-speed regeneration, that undefeatable X factor on her side. They were equals in strength, but Shion could keep up the fight for far longer. While they seemed an even match in each exchange of blows, Clayman's fatigue had begun to stand out while I was fighting Milim. Shion probably didn't need my aid to win this, and now that her advantage was clear to all, Clayman was starting to panic. Is that all you've got? You are far too weak to call yourself a demon lord. Wow, Shion. No mercy, huh? She was totally dissing Clayman. You'll pay for that. Come to me, marionette dance. The demon lord unleashed 5 puppets, each transforming into a magic born that lunged at Shion. Each one was high in level, formed from a soul Clayman had put in a doll for deployment at any time. It was part of his hidden arsenal, I suppose. Now was no time for him to hold back, no doubt, so he was busting out everything he had. This was more than enough firepower to take out your average magic born. But with that massive sword she loved so much, she mowed down all 5 with a single swipe. "Pathetic," she said, not a hint of fatigue on her face. "You never were anything special, were you?" She had been fighting, and there wasn't a scratch on her. She was starting to look and act more like a demon lord now. Clayman, meanwhile, was visibly quivering. Don't give me that, you!" he shouted out of humiliation. "It's too early to boast of your victory yet. My marionette dance will recover itself in moments, striking at you again. The real show begins now." He probably wasn't making that up out of spite. They really could do that. Shion waited for them, a thoughtful look on her face, but the dolls showed no sign of getting back up. There was a good reason for that. Panic crossed Clayman's face again. "No," he whispered. "Why aren't they reviving? I could understand the shock of having your beloved tools of battle fail you like this. I decided to provide a little color commentary. How about I just reveal it to you? Shion's greatsword is a type called a soul eater. Those puppets didn't have any physical and spiritual defensive spells applied to them, right? You cheaped out on creating them, so she broke them in one hit. That much wasn't worth keeping under wraps to me. Clayman was going to be my prey anyway. If he wanted to know, then let him know. Aye, a sword with spirit-based attacks. It's not that rare. There's a human with one out there, you know. And no, that's one of the least common traits, even with uniques. Ah, well, what's it matter? One of my friends forged it for us. Shion's sword was a modified blade created using Hinata's as a reference. It had the power to attack the spiritual body itself, not literally eat souls or anything, but deal damage to spirit-based life form. There were no restrictions like that 7 hits thing with Hinata. Depending on the force applied, it could kill instantly unless successfully resisted. It wasn't guaranteed to kill all the time, but Shion wasn't exactly a delicate fighter, so it didn't matter. Since it dealt both spiritual and physical damage, she didn't need 7 hits to finish foes anyway. Oh, I see. So this is Goriki Maru version 2. She didn't know? I'm pretty sure we went over all this when I gave it to her. Ah, whatever. Shion was never one to sweat the small stuff, so setting her up with this was the right idea. I see. It was the power of that sword that allowed you to fight against me. Then allow me to add that dirty little blade to my collection. Take this, demon marionette. Sounds like Clayman had misread her. The ominous strings of black light that streamed from both his hands wrapped themselves completely around Shion's body. She didn't move. Kinda wish she tried to dodge it or, something, but I guess she didn't need to. Clayman, assuming Shion didn't react in time, found this much to his liking. Behold, the ultimate cursing magic with the power to rule over demon lords them. It seems a waste to squander it on magic born like you, but so be it. I have some slots to fill in my 5 fingers, and you would be wonderful to take under my wing. He totally had the wrong idea, if that's what he was saying, poor guy. It wasn't that Shion couldn't move, she just didn't move. Despite all of Clayman's lofty words, he was probably freaking out over why it wasn't working at all. Complete memory, one of Shion's skills, was the power to record memories into her astral body. In layman's terms, it let her retain her memories even if her brain was destroyed. Combine a conscious soul with a set of memories, and you could regenerate the physical body even if it was vaporized. This made Xian into a special sort of race. Call her a demi-spiritual life form if you want, but essentially it allowed her to think with her soul, and that meant any effect that tried to take over her spirit was neutralized. Against Xion, no mind takeover curses could ever work. "Hey!" An annoyed-sounding Xion called out from within her cocoon of black string. "What are you trying to do with this?" "It's not hurting me at all, but should I wait a little longer? You know, and this has been something I've been thinking for a while now, but I really wish she'd stop acting like this was a pro wrestling bout. This was supposed to be a duel to the death. Why was she deliberately letting herself get hit by her enemy's moves?" Xion, Sophia, and Milim too. I just didn't understand how these war-loving freaks thought sometimes. Gimme a break. Raphael confirmed to me that Xion wasn't being affected at all, though. There wasn't any need to even beware of Clayman's secret techniques. That's ridiculous. My demon marionette doesn't work. It has to. This cannot even be possible. It's the ultimate in demon domination. It can exact its rule over demon lords. It had ruled over Ninehead a moment ago. Certainly you could take over the mind of a calamity-level monster with it easily enough. But would it work on the disaster-class demon lords? I think Clayman overestimated his own strength. Apparently sick of waiting any longer, Xion used his aura to rip her cocoon apart. "So ridiculous," she scornfully muttered. "Relying on such cheap tricks as this, you don't deserve your title at all." Clayman just stood there, finally succumbing to the panic. Or not. What Xian said must flip to switch somewhere inside of him. "I don't deserve my title. You'll regret saying that, you maggot." "Yes, you'll regret extracting my full strength from me." His shoulders were shaking as he shrieked with laughter. Off went his fancy-looking suit jacket and shirt, leaving him topless. It also left assorted other items he had hidden on his body to clank against the floor, no longer of use to him. I had thought this was over, but Clayman still had something left to rely on. Suddenly, 2 pairs of arms grew out from his uncovered back, long, thin, and protected by a black exoskeleton. This was his true character. Not the dolled-up form from before, but this form that evoked wild, crazed insanity. But yes, you're right. A demon lord, I am a demon lord. I focused on ease and elegance in the way I go about matters, dispatching my foes with style. But enough of that. It doesn't matter. I had forgotten about how this feels for so long, and now I'm going to crush you in my hands. The true nature of his rage came to the surface. All he had on him was something he kept preciously protected in his hand. A mask. A jester's mask, decorated with a smile. Without a moment's pause, he put it on. "Oh, looks like you've grown worthier," a happy-sounding Xian said. "I'm glad to see that. I am Shi, secretary and personal guard to the demon lord Rimuru, and I will be happy to fight you. And I am the demon lord, no, the crazed clown Clayman. You are dead, Xion the Magic-born." The introductions were made. The two moved at the same moment. Clayman, in his real form, was a powerhouse, laying out the full extent of his demon lord-worthy magical force against Xion. His normal arms wielded those ominous black beams of light. The upper arms from his back wielded an axe and a hammer, the lower ones a sword and shield. Dealing with both magical and melee attacks at once baffled Xion for a moment. But she was stronger. Swinging the sword she called Goriki Maru version 2, she clanged the sword out of his hand and crushed his shield. A simple, tactless roundhouse slash from above smashed through the axe and hammer Clayman crossed in front of him. That freakish force came courtesy of Shion's intrinsic skill ogre berserker, and her frenzy of weapon breaking was the work of guarantee results and optimal action, both part of her master chef unique skill. In other words, Clayman was still no match for her. Even with all his might, she was just pummeling him. Now he was crossing his two pairs of steel-like arms to block Shion's fists, but they too were smashed to ribbon. Her next punch landed squarely in the pit of his stomach. Oh! He fell in agony, foaming at the mouth. There it is. The end. Not that it's for me to say, but Shion really had gotten overwhelmingly stronger. Dying and getting resurrected like that gave her power on a scale like nothing she ever had before. She planted a follow-up kick on him, making him roll around on the ground in agony. The mask was cracked now, revealing bloodshot eyes. Oh no, this can't be. How could I? A demon lord, Clayman? Now Clayman understood the difference in power, but he still refused to accept this reality. It was devastating to him. May I put him out of his misery, Sir Rimuru? There were a few things I could ask him, but I could predict most of the answers. Beyond that, I wanted to know about whose bidding he was doing, but was he going to be honest with that? Damn it all. Milim. What is Milim doing? Destroy that magic born at once. Clayman was screaming out the words now, realizing that his death was near, but Veldora was holding Milim back. Clayman looked at him with disbelief. Who? What is this? His power is off the charts. He must have just realized that Veldora wasn't just another magic born. Well, he's in human form right now, but that's Veldora. I told you, remember? He's my friend. This silenced Clayman. I'm sure he wanted to deny it, but seeing him spar evenly with Milim forced him to admit it. The two had been fighting for a while now, and it was turning into quite the fireworks show. Skill names flew back and forth, many of which I think I remembered hearing before, and Milim had an honest look of surprise on her face. Hey, is she really being controlled? Because I'm starting to wonder. Raphael's reaction made me ponder the idea for a bit, but it was no big deal at the moment. Besides, this would be the first time she'd met Veldora as a person, and it seemed like she was having a blast. Thus, Clayman gave up on having Milim to rely on. Even in his panicked confusion, he managed to flee to the edge of our isolated battle zone, shouting at the audience outside. Frey, what are you doing? You and I share a common fate. Get in here and lend a hand! The pleading fell on cold, dead ears. Oh, I'm sorry, Clayman. Nobody can go through this barrier unless Guy lets them. Such a pity! He resentfully groaned at this heartless reply, then turned back toward Milim, his eyes twitching and revealing the insanity inside. He must have gotten another wild idea in his mind. A crazed laugh crossed his lips as he looked at her once more. Ka! Milim! Follow my orders and execute a stampede? Kill everybody you see and hear. Well, that sounds awful. Clayman just wanted to survive now, and he didn't care how bad he looked along the way. This is bad, I have to admit. Now isn't the time to sit around and watch things unfold. Back into the battle I go. But just as I started to run, I heard the most unbelievable thing. Why do I need to do that? Rimuru and his people are my friends. Surprised, I turned around, only to find Milim chilling out there, a wide grin on her face. Milim! Whoa, you! Weren't you being controlled? Wah-ha-ha-ha. Thanks a lot for getting tricked by that, Rimuru. You know someone like Clayman would never take over my mind. What? I can't articulate why, but I had the strangest feeling Raphael had been angry at me for a while. But back to Milim. So, Clayman didn't seize your mind? What's going on here? I felt obliged to check one more time, but Milim just gave me a proud smile. I could hear at least one demon lord in the audience say, huh? But she didn't react at all when he punched her. The most surprised of all, of course, was Clayman. Yes. I used the orb of domination he gave me to put you completely at my beck and call you killed Carillon under my orders, did you not? Oh, Clayman. So shocked by these events that he has no idea what he just said. That ought to make my video evidence more believable. After all, he just revealed that not only was he the culprit, but there was someone else pulling his strings too. Yes. That's what I wanted to hear, exclaimed Milim. Answer me, Clayman. Who's this he you're talking about? She asked the question casually enough, but she backed it up with sharp, seeking eyes. She had totally ignored Clayman's question, which was so like her. Right. So Milim wasn't being controlled, and she had her doubts about Clayman from the beginning? For what? Before I could get an answer, another voice butted in. Who's been killed here? It came from the other end of the battle zone. This low, heavy voice, belonging to the man with the eagle wings that Frey brought along with her. Wait, no way like with that obvious a costume? And if I didn't pick up on that, does that make me? Oh, why does it feel like Raphael's exasperated with me? And wasn't it about to say something to me back then? Or maybe not? Maybe I was just hearing things. Let's forget about it and pay more attention in the future. The man, Carillon, ripped the mask off his face, his awe-inspiring aura shooting out with it. With a moment's concentration, he was instantly back to his original appearance. Yep, yeah, that's the Beastmaster, all right. No doubt about it. Wow, you were all right, Carillon. Yo, Rimuru. All right, ain't how I would describe it, but that's fine. Thank you for taking care of my forces. Oh, not a problem. After thanking me, Carillon gave Clayman a knowing grin. Now it was obvious that Milim was under no one's control. What? How? So, it's true? But Frey told me no, Frey, too. You betrayed me as well, didn't you? Finally getting the whole picture, Clayman gave Frey a half-crazed glare. She responded by pretending he wasn't there. By the looks of things, I wouldn't call this a betrayal per se. Frey nonchalantly replied. Since when were you laboring under the assumption that I was your ally? Yikes. I knew it. Women can be so scary sometimes. Frey was tricking Clayman from the get-go. You have to be kidding me. All of you'll pay. I'll make you all pay for this. The scream of the pitiful clown echoed across the field, and Shion, do it. You got it. Like a hungry dog released from the command to stay, Shion bounded off using both hands to swing down her blade as quickly as she possibly could. It was a single blow from her sword, a judging strike. Clayman did his best to block it, but his 3 pairs of arms were all sliced off, his body slashed diagonally down from head to toe. It was unsurvivable, and that one stroke from Shion's spirit-crushing blade made Clayman fall wordlessly to the ground. It was over for Clayman. Carillon was alive, and we had all the testimony in order. I'm pretty sure I could avoid being branded the enemy of the demon lords now. Clayman was barely clinging to life. He was no longer a threat. There was no way left for him to turn the tables. Things were already set in stone, and there would be no more excuses. So, before the demon lords, he had revealed everything. And each of them might take the news differently, but regardless, their trust in him had vanished, none willing to cover for him. The barrier covering us was removed, and Frey quickly ran up and approached Milim. I believed you were still of sound mind, but I truly had my doubts at times, Milim. And you kept our promise anyway. I appreciate that.
Oh, ha ha ha, sha!
Of course I did. We're friends. But you've been taking care of that for me, right? Did ya bring it over? Yes, you mean this, right? I have to say, though, withstanding the orb of domination was simply amazing. As they spoke, Frey took something out of her pocket and handed it to Milim. It was the dragon knuckle I gave her as a present. Milim accepted it like a kid on her birthday and immediately put it on, beaming ear to ear. The rest of the demon lords, seeing this, finally put two and two together, and I could hear whispers all around the room. Such a cheap performance. I saw through it the whole time. Yes, I assumed as much. Yeah, I figured. I don't think I was the only one Milim tricked, but everyone else found the results just as plausible as I did. Then I heard a groan from below, like the sound of blood being coughed up. Since when were you deceiving me? It was Clayman. He was still breathing, still incapable of grasping the unbelievable reality before him. And it was Milim who revealed the cruel truth. I had a real hard time doing it. With that promise I made with Frey, I had to pretend you tricked me. Then I put on that pendant and made you think it was working on me. You couldn't. I put my full power into it with the orb of domination, the perfect ultimate demon dominate.
Ooh.
And you. Uh-huh. Most magic like that bounces off me pretty easily, so first I had to remove all my barriers, then hold back my force so I didn't passively resist it. I had to convince you that the curse was working before your own eyes, or else you'd be far too wary to believe me. So I had to work really hard. Wow? What? You accepted it on purpose? My most valuable artifact, my hidden gem, the ability to control demon lords. Oh, was that what it was? Well, too bad you could never control me. She stuck her chest out, looking relentlessly proud of herself. Yeah, really, I commented. I feel stupid for worrying about you. And between that two-fisted sports pose and the smile you had on your face, your acting abilities really suck. What do you want from me? I was just glad to see you were all angry for me, Rimuru. Frey just shrugged at this. Still, she said, when Clayman punched you, I thought I was going to lose my composure. If you decided to fight back against him, you would have destroyed my home. Great job putting up with him. That, at least, I have to compliment you for. An interesting revelation. So that wasn't the first time Clayman physically abused her. What a nutcase. Was he actively trying to get himself killed? Mum, I'm all grown up now, too, so I can deal with stuff like that. That obsession with being grown up indicated all too well how childish she still was. Oh, how? Frey protested. Well, that's fine, but you couldn't have dealt with all that just because of our promise, could you? What did you really want? Well, I remember Clayman talking to me about some weird stuff before. Like about making Rimuru into an enemy of mankind and triggering a war between humans and monsters. If he did that, that wouldn't be too fun for me, so I thought I'd meddle a bit. Heavens, heavens! Imagine you lifting a finger for somebody else. I told you, I'm all grown up now. Yes, let's just call it that. Well, I suppose Milim was sharp enough to realize Clayman was doing someone else's bidding, so she pretended to be brainwashed in order to find out who it was. She had some kind of promise or deal with Frey, too. Let's just ignore the fact that she totally tricked me. The thing to focus on was that orb didn't hypnotize her at all. She didn't struggle out of it midway. It never worked once. It was all an award-winning performance. As she later explained to me, she had been consuming bell peppers to maintain her poker face. The blank expression that resulted from eating this detested food of hers made everyone think her mind had been erased. It wasn't enough to trick Veldora, but he played along, enjoying the combat session as a way to get limber in his new body. Maybe he was a lot more adaptable to things than I thought. Like, seriously, Raphael, you never saw it? Oh, okay. Guess you did try to tell me something. I suppose it telling me no results should have been pretty bleedingly obvious looking back. Of course it couldn't find any curse effects on her. I was just jumping to conclusions. I should really adopt the habit of listening more carefully to people. That and hearing them out until the end. I wasn't about to tell anyone about it, but yeah, I had my personal regrets. By the way, Carolon asked as he strode up to Milam, if I could ask you something. She smiled back with the dragon knuckle eased into her fingers. Mum, sure, anything. I just wanted to be sure you weren't under anyone's control. So that was all you when you were whipping the life out of me? Carolon was smiling too, but I could see the veins on his forehead bulging. Yeah, I'd be wondering about that too. That, it's fine, it's fine. It just means I'm weaker than you. But, he added, no longer hiding his anger, you willfully blew up my entire nation, didn't you? Milim was caught off guard for a moment, before immediately raging back at him. Oh, come on, Carolon. That's the kind of small stuff you're preoccupied with. What's it matter? Yeah, that's the real Milim, all right? It's not small stuff. You know I could have died back there. Oh, don't give me that. Just shut up. I was so passionate about my performance. Passionate about deceiving Clayman that I was trying really, really hard. It's all Clayman's fault. His fault? Oh, well, whatever. Not that you'll ever listen to anyone else's complaints. I was starting to feel a little bad for Carillon. Seeing those tears appear on his rugged, masculine eyes, I wanted to console him as best I could. She tricked me too, so I thought we had something in common. Now, Carillon. Your lycanthropias and everyone else are safe, and they all put in a hell of an effort fighting for your revenge. It wasn't all bad, was it? Rimuru, thanks for the thought. Yeah, so don't worry about it. Besides, you can always build another town. I even had our forces capture Clayman's magic born to serve as your labor force. Ooh, are you serious? Yep, yeah. I'll provide any technical expertise you need, and all of us at Tempest will help you out as best we can, too. So let's make it a better, happier Eurazania than ever before. We had time for it. Time, and funds kindly provided by Clayman. Considering our future trade prospects, it'd be strategically beneficial for us to have Carillon owe us a favor. It seemed like a great opportunity to exploit, and I wanted to maybe make friends with more beastmen through the work, too. Wah-ha-ha! Isn't that great, Carillon? You have me to thank for that, too. Her to thank for what, I wondered. Maybe for completely flattening the land around the capital and thus saving us the trouble of hauling away the rubble. I'll really owe you one, the surprised yet thankful Carillon replied. And you know, Rimuru, or maybe Sir Rimuru, I promise to you that the Beast Kingdom will never hesitate to help you out if you need it. We'll be allied nations forever, and I wish you would at least pretend to regret this a little more, he didn't forget to add, turning to Milim. To her credit, she was back to her usual self. If Carillon and I were cool, she was cool. That's Milim for you, always looking out for number one. and I didn't mind if Carillon was feeling better. It appeared that my promises surprised a lot more people than just Carillon. They were a shock to the demon lords assembled around us, too. "So that was it," observed the smiling red-haired guy. "I thought leaving those magic-born alive was a sign of weakness, but I see you're a rather creative thinker. Hardly any wonder that Noir's taken a liking to you." "Noir? Who's that?" "Ah, well." Frey was back to focusing on Clayman, a quiet anger enveloping her. "So, Clayman," she said, "you always were the sort to domineer over weaker people, or those who couldn't resist you. I don't think you have any right to call yourself a demon lord. I didn't intervene since Milim was trying so hard, but you know what? I was kind of angry at you too." It made it clear that Frey had no interest in rescuing him. "Yeah, I know it's survival of the fittest, but you took a step too far, I'd say. You wrecked my country, and I want to see you pay for that, okay?" Carillon did have a lot of damage to deal with. Damage technically inflicted by Milim, yes, but he was willing to shift the blame to Clayman here and make him suffer the consequences. None of the other demon lords voiced any opposition to this. I suppose Clayman wasn't too popular a guy in this clique. He was already cornered, and now the final moment was approaching. Time to finish him off. Feeling the life ebb away from him, Clayman's heart was filled with regret. Regret and the words of his friends and advisers flashing before his eyes. Now's not the time to be too reckless. Whatever you do, don't let your guard down. Ah, you were absolutely right, Laplace. He thought he was being careful, but he let power drown him. When he beheld Milim's overwhelming strength, he made the erroneous assumption that it was all his to wield. It's just as you felt it. In the end, I was the one being controlled by Milim. I thought I was paying attention, but she tricked me. You trusted in me, left me to rule as your demon lord, but I suppose this is the end for me." He had ignored his friend's warning, and that set these results in stone. "You're weaker than us, Clayman, all right? So no trying to pull anything weird by yourself if you could." "Ho, ho, ho, ho. Tear is right. Feel free to depend on us instead." "Ah, Tia. Ah, footman. You're right, you're right. I forgot." He was too focused on himself to feel it right to rely on his friends. He did file the promise in his mind, actually, but he forgot about that when it counted. One of the most inexcusable things he could have done. I just wanted to get as close as I could to them. Of course, I'd take risks to achieve that. Why wouldn't I? I was part of the moderate jesters, too. It was true. Clayman wanted the respect of his peers. He wanted his powers to be recognized, so he never revealed his moderate jester's side to the public. Now he realized that was a mistake. But it was too late. He recalled when he first met the mysterious patron that led him to this. "Hey, you're Clayman, right? Who are you?" "Someone in a hurry to die, apparently, if you address me that casually." "Oh, no need to act so alarmed. We have a common acquaintance who pointed me here." "An acquaintance?" Yeah. The demon lord Kazalim. Your creator, of sorts." "What? What?" He had intended to kill this boy with haste, but then he mentioned a name from his distant past. Now, Clayman was interested in hearing him out, and when he did, he discovered the truth about him, his ambitions and his power. "I'm going to take over this world, Clayman, and I want you to help me." "I like it. So that's your request?" "Yes. A job for the moderate jesters." "And what are your terms?" "How does resurrecting Kazalim sound to you?" It was beyond all expectations. There was no reason to refuse. The powers the boy displayed to him made it clear beyond doubt. He immediately accepted the job. "I thought you'd agree to it." Now the world can be ours together. It's going to be one crazy place for us to live in. Seeing this boy living life as if it was all some kind of wonderful game, Clayman honestly thought he could pull it off. There were obstacles in their way, massive ones, but that made it seem all the more fun. It seemed that way, but now his mistakes had crumbled the foundation of their whole strategy. And after the boy had fulfilled his part of the bargain and revived Kazalim, my thoughtlessness led to this. There is no defending me to him now. Kazalim was alive and well, and he had no way to congratulate him. More just desserts for him. He had been ordered to sit tight and watch how things unfolded, and he ignored those orders for his own petty reason. The last thing he recalled were the words of the man himself, the advice his beloved demon lord Kazalim gave him. Clayman, I see much of myself in you, and you may imitate me if you like, but do not imitate my negative aspects. It was wise, all too wise, and something he should have recalled quicker. Sir Kazalim, I apologize. I forgot your advice, and I committed the gravest mistake possible. Yes, it was Clayman's mistake, made in the worst possible fashion. And just like Kazalim, he was defeated in the most shameful way by a freshly born demon lord. Karma in action, one could say, but to Clayman it hurt more than anything else. And I even lost the army you granted me through my mistakes. I cannot die. No, I cannot die yet. If I die here without atoning for this at all, I'll never be able to forgive myself. If it had come to this, he at least wanted to pass on what he knew. The thought kindled the light of life in Clayman before he could completely resign himself to his fate. You are a walking dead, created by me from a dead body, but I have placed special weight upon your brain power. You are not geared for combat, unlike Footman and Tear, but no one can use strategy and artifice to command armies the way that you can. That, Clayman, is why you shall become a demon lord. Kazalim had high hopes for him, and he betrayed them all. But if it was power he lacked, all he needed was to obtain some. Then he could stand tall with Footman and Tear, surpass them even. If only Clayman had some power to back up his intelligence, he could have sprung past them all with ease. Yes, yes, indeed. There was no need to awaken to a true demon lord at all. So give it to me.
Give me power. Give me the overwhelming power I need.
Confirmed. Converting the soul into magical energy, successful. Disassembling and reconstructing the receptacle body. Clayman wasn't expecting the internally shouted wish to come true. But the world language had other plans for him. Right here, at the last moment, his wish had been granted. So heaven hasn't forsaken me yet. In which case, Clayman's answer was obvious. Hey, so you treat me like a fool? Well, I'll repay you for all that. For now, though, I've got to get out of here. He was weak, too weak to even use his voice, but Clayman's soul was burning bright. His life was a raging flame. And now, with a coolness that was quite the opposite of what was in his heart, Clayman resolved to retreat. The older demon lords, Guy, Milim, and Dagrel in particular, were too much to handle. Simply awakening wouldn't give him the winning edge against them, and now was no time for recklessness. First, he would report back to the boy. That took precedence over everything. The despicable slime he looked down upon was still a question mark, but even the magic born that served him was stronger than Clayman, and he was on good terms with a revived Veldora, a point he couldn't afford to ignore. Anyone who survived a confrontation with Hinata couldn't have done so out of sheer luck. He needed to abandon his rose-colored glasses and analyze things for what they were. And that was why he had to take the information he learned here and bring it back. Quickly, he assembled a plan. His idea, to release a massive ball of magical force, as much as he could manage, and slip out of this chamber in the chaos. I will need to watch out for Guy. Guy had no time to deal with weaklings. He probably wasn't even paying attention to Clayman any longer. It's all right. I'll get out of here, I promise. And if he could take out a few demon lords along the way, he thought as he scrambled to his feet, all the better. Among the demon lords watching, I was probably the first one to notice. I had my eyes on Clayman the entire time, never giving up the watch. Shion, get back! Quickly heeding my command, Shion fell back to my side. Immediately after she did, the area around Clayman, including the spot she stood on, was swept over by a huge quantity of magicule. The storm gathered even more energy from the chamber, focusing itself squarely upon Clayman. If I had yelled out a moment later, Shion would have been caught up in it. Looks like it's really happening. Sir Rimuru? What is... The sight of me keeping my cool appeared to relieve Shion. There was no reason to panic, and I wasn't panicking, but Clayman's awakened. Just as planned. Just as planned? Well, great. I was glad to earn Shion's full trusts, but I wasn't quite so assured myself. This is all according to Raphael's plan, but are we really okay with this? 'Cause if we lose, it's gonna stop being funny real fast. When I first laid eyes on Clayman earlier, I could see a large number of rifts in the air around him, as if they were attached to his soul. It was malice personified, the remains of the souls from the people he had killed up to now. But I couldn't just take them from him. They couldn't go on to the afterlife, and they couldn't dissolve into the air. If I killed Clayman, they'd go down with him. As I thought over what I could do about this, Raphael suggested a plan of action: force Clayman into a corner and make him awaken to a true demon lord. Suggestion: if you use Belzebuth to consume the energy Clayman releases upon awakening, it will be possible to restore your magicule. It was easy for Raphael to say, but there was a litany of problems with that. I didn't know if Clayman would awaken, and if he did, he'd undoubtedly be powered up. But hey, wouldn't he just fall asleep, like with my harvest festival? Understood. Since Clayman's evolution did not follow the standard procedure, the process will not be fully complete. As a result, it is believed that he will not require sleep. So, sort of a limited power-up then. I guess I'll just have to defeat an awakened Clayman then. According to Raphael's predictive calculations, defeating him would be a breeze no matter how much he was enhanced. That was based on everything from his core strength to the power he could earn and the skills he was likely to acquire. Even at the maximum threat level, its answers indicated I was still on top of him. No point worrying about it then. Just gotta do it. Besides, it was kind of true that my magical energy was just about ready to bottom out. I could replenish it really fast, so it bounced right back after deploying a large-scale spell, but restoring it to full actually took a while. Although I had more energy than my awakening took, I was also using Veldora this whole time as a fuel tank to restore it. With him no longer part of me, it was natural to want to keep my own magicules topped off. It also earned me some street cred with the other demon lords. As the new recruit, I needed to seize a seat at the round table with my own power. Showing off my battlefield skill was the best way to earn their acceptance without stirring up trouble in the future. If I didn't want them wheedling me later, I wanted them to think that I shouldn't be messed with. Let's use this awakened Clayman to show off my power. It'll save everyone a lot of trouble as time goes on. And the power to show off. The ultimate skill, Belzebuth, Lord of Gluttony, of course. Hey! Rimuru, Clayman's awakened. I can't believe it, but look at all that force. Let me help with. You're fine, Carillon. I'll take him on. I'm calling myself a demon lord, and I want to earn my way into the club. I'm going to dispatch him and make them all accept me. Carillon shrugged and stepped aside. Well, don't blow it, he said, and I definitely didn't intend to. The enemy had to be crushed. That was the only reason I needed. I was more pissed off at Clayman than anyone else. It was time to settle this, so I walked toward Clayman, now fully on his feet. The other demon lords were content with watching, seemingly all right with me fighting alone. I was sure they wanted to gauge what I had, so I assumed they wouldn't complain. Milliam was brightly smiling at me, and Ramirez was happily humming to herself. Nobody was doubting my chances, which I took as them believing in me. "She, Ranger, step back." "But I've got this." Yes, sir. Good luck, Sir Rimuru." The other lords gave them enough distance to retreat away, so that I wouldn't unwittingly hurt anyone else. Now I was alone, and Clayman gave me his sickly little laugh. "Ha ha 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 ha! Look at me. I've obtained the power. You thought I was finished, you worm. Now prepare to be crushed." The laughter grew louder as he looked down at me. But it was all an act. It was sad how well Raphael had predicted all his moves. As it described matters, there were two potential strategies Clayman could take. One was a desperate bull rush to kill me. The other was to sneer at me, make me lose my cool and search for a path of escape. Evidently, he chose the latter, and that meant I knew what he'd do next. I grimaced at him, keeping my eyes firmly on every move he made. Clayman was looking for an opening, so I played along with his performance. "I told you you're cornered. I'm stronger than you. Give it up and tell me whose bidding you're doing." Of course, in my case, it wasn't a performance. It was what I really wanted from him. Perhaps that was why Clayman so easily took the bait. Impertinent to the end, I see. Once I release my... He kept up the act as he suddenly took action. He must have figured I was off my guard because he fired a massive ball of magical energy from out of nowhere. Must have been building it up as we talked. It was a huge, super-powered blast, one that contained all the energy he had just awakened into, and it was hurtling straight my way. Clayman assumed I would dodge it. That, or maybe fire off a blast of my own to neutralize it, although a spur-of-the-moment spell like that from me wouldn't be enough. If I jumped away, it'd explode in mid-air. If I tried blowing it up, he'd be able to escape in the resulting gigantic explosion. That, I imagine, were his thoughts. Too bad, though. Didn't I just tell you? You're cornered. That attack won't do a thing. Projectiles don't work on me. Beelzebub gobbled up that massive energy blast, leaving our surroundings completely unaffected. Clayman's scheme bit the dust hard. Whoa! It surprised Clayman enough to leave himself open, just long enough for me to snap my fingers. At that instant, a barrier erected itself over the two of us, a kind of imitation of the one guy built. "So he's stealing my skills?" A bemused but unangered guy asked. Talk about shameless. Now I calmly thought I can consume Clayman with confidence. Man, my thought processes are getting more and more evil by the day, aren't they? Because I'm a monster, maybe. I wasn't shirking the idea of eating him up at all. Or was it because I'm a demon lord now? It doesn't matter. Oh, what? What happened? Clayman could no longer hide his confusion. The biggest, proudest attack he had was wiped away in an instant, and his brain hadn't caught up to that yet. Like, how many times do I have to say it? You're already cornered. The moment someone with your level of talent took me on, your future was cast in stone. It's so important, isn't it, to fully gauge your abilities against those of your opponent? Look, if you're going to be serious about this, make it fast. I'll wait for you. Or were you thinking about ducking out of this chamber while that attack exploded all over us? It was a fully rhetorical question I was cornering him with. Talk about disrespecting your fellow man. Well, I'm a slime now, so it's all right. I mean, Clayman was still screwing with me. He was on high alert, watching for what I'd do next, but he was still a wimp about it. Just as Raphael expected, getting awakened didn't do all that much to change him. He had a ton more magical energy, but that was it. Apparently, he hadn't obtained any ability to control it or new skills to take advantage of it with. His awakening was a far different thing from mine. Me, I could use Mind Accelerate to speed up my brain 1,000,000 times until it felt like time stopped. I could even cast spells in that state, making it look like I could just think of a magic spell to set it off. Kneading together a big ball of magic was a terribly inefficient use of my time, so I didn't opt for that here. Unlike a full spell, which could be conceived and cast through one's will or knowledge, in other words, controlling one's aura always led to a time lag. Of course I could handle that because I had cast Cancel and all of creation. No matter how long and intricate a spell was, living life 1,000,000 times slower than normal made it simple. 1 second, after all, now felt like 277 hours. Even the fanciest of spells could be pulled off in less than a day, so that meant I could trigger them in less than 1/10 of a second. With regular magic, it was simple for me to set off multiples at the same time even. Thus, if I were in Clayman's shoes, I'd use multiple layers of magic to throw the chamber into confusion, then attempt to run as fast as I could. He didn't choose that, which meant he didn't have the strength for it. He hadn't even noticed that I built a barrier around us, one that cut off any escape route. If he wanted to get out, he'd have to do it over my dead body. Whether he was aware of this or not, the atmosphere around Clayman began to change. Mere slime with a big mouth, I see. You are strong, I will admit that much. But I am capable of far more than this. He had changed tactics to the first scenario, a desperate bull rush to kill me. Giving up the escape, revealing his full force to the demon lords a risky bet, to be sure, but it gave him a winning chance. Surrounded by a bunch of lords who believed that strength was everything, it'd even be a chance to write off all his previous crimes. Assuming, of course, he could beat me. You seem confident in your aura control abilities, but do you think you could deal with this? Here we go, my most powerful hidden skill, Demon Blaster. After that long speech to throw off my game, he put his feelers to the ground, stretching them out around me, and then released. The attack harnessed the ley lines under the ground, stacking them together and mixing in his own magicules to amplify them, then released it as a destabilizing ray of light. That was the long and short of it, and anyone caught in it would have their arrangement of magicules thrown into chaos, destroying them from the inside. Physical resistance would be useless, and even a magical barrier would be instantly smashed. This was the natural enemy of any monster, and I had to hand it to him. This was real Demon Lord stuff. But it didn't work on me. Swallow it all down, Beelzebub. The Demon Blaster light beam looked like a herd of dragons rising up from the ground. But now they were caught up in a rift before they could reach me, screaming their last as they were sucked inside. There was no escape, almost like a black hole that consumed all light around it. Forget it, Clayman. You're weaker than me. I had to crush him and hopefully make him reveal something about his patron. The best way to do that was via terror. No, that's not possible. That was my secret weapon. Secret or not, projectiles just didn't work on me. Maybe if he used his head and did something to land a direct hit on me, things would be different. Do you see that you can't win now? So, let me ask you, tell me what you know and who you're cooperating with. Be honest with me and I'll give you a painless death. I am a walking dead. Kill me all you want. I'll just resurrect myself and come back later to kill. Oh. I punched him. Then again, and again and again, without a word. I also applied Mind Accelerate, speeding it up 1,000,000 times for him. Raphael could influence not just my perspective, but those of people around me. In the real world, it lasted several seconds. But in Clayman's mind, I was continually punching him, tormenting him with pain and terror for several dozen days, so I could carve that pain and terror into his soul. And in those few seconds, the terror made Clayman's hair fall out, transforming his visage into the ghastly, bony gaze of the actual dead. "Clayman," I quietly called out. His body convulsed, then froze out of terror. "I'm going to ask you one more time. Who are you getting your information from, and how is this person related to you? Tell me, and I'll make it easy on you." But Clayman had more backbone than I thought. Don't treat me like a child. I would never betray my friends, and especially not my clients. That, and that alone, is the ironclad rule of the moderate jesters. So even villains had certain unbreakable rules. All right, well, so be it. I casually changed my tone. All right, I should probably tell you. You realize you aren't going to be resurrected, right? He had talked about doing that a few seconds, or days, ago, but it wasn't going to happen. Being consumed by Beelzebub was an even more tragic fate than being caught in the inescapable, unlimited imprisonment Veldora was locked in. Oh, what? What are you talking about? Was he keeping up that macho act because he was counting on a new life later on, then? The moment he heard me, Clayman began to quiver. "Look, what you told me earlier about how walking dead can come alive again after they die? And that's why you wanted me to focus on killing you so you could pluck out your astral body and try to run away." Right. He was an underhanded sneak, but I had to applaud him for his single-minded devotion to his cause. But my observation made his face pale. "Oh, what did you?" He tried to cover it, but I could tell I was right. Not even I needed Raphael to figure it out, but Raphael had even more amazing stuff for me. So you can connect your astral body to the ley lines here to keep your consciousness and memories protected, yeah? So even if you lose your physical body, you'll never truly die. That's why you were pretending to die there. Ah, now I see. And just parroting out what Raphael told me made Clayman convulse before me. I was absolutely correct. Wait. I knew his game, and now it was time to end it. I turned toward the demon lords surrounding us, ignoring the gibbering Clayman. Well, I guess I won't extract anything else from Clayman, so I'm going to execute him shortly. Anyone have any objections? Because if you do, I'll be happy to take you on, too. It would suck if someone did, but I doubted it. "Do as you please," Guy answered, speaking for the council like I thought he would. No one else voiced any complaint. "Stop! Wait, stop it!" Now Clayman was loudly pleading for his life, finally realizing there was no escape. "After all the grief you gave me, I'm absolutely sick of you. Don't expect your death to be all sunshine and rainbows, all right?" With that, I placed my hand on his head. I thought I'd make it quick and easy on him if he coughed up some info on his master, but Clayman never sang. I really wanted him to, considering what I'd have to deal with in the future, but hey, I'd probably manage without it. There might be some more leads in his castle to explore, and given the testimony I had that the modest jesters weren't a monster ring, it was obvious that Clayman had worked with humans. I didn't know if that meant the Eastern Empire or the Western nations, but either way, if he knew about my own movements, he had to have connections in the West. Track those down, and I should find a trail to follow before long. In a way, relying on the not-too-credible Clayman's testimony might just lead to more confusion. So, Clayman, I hope you'll spend the last few moments before your soul vanishes regretting what you've done. No! Wait! Stop! Stop! Help me, footman. Tear, help me! I can't die yet. I can't die here. It was pathetic watching him try to flee, but I wasn't about to allow it. No matter how much he carried on, none of it would ever touch my heart. Leaving someone like this alive would just be planting the seed of disaster. Plus, thanks to you, the naivete in me just died. There was no way I could let that get one of my companions killed again. Please, Lord Kazalim, help me. He reached out to his broken mask, clutching at it as if in prayer. Crunch. In an instant, the wailing, howling, resisting Clayman disappeared from sight. Body, soul, and all were greedily consumed by Beelzebub, and now it was converted into pure magicules inside me, where he would get to experience the torments of hell. And whether a dirtied soul like his, a tainted evil soul, or a sensible good soul, death treated them all equally. And for a moment I thought I heard his voice. "Ah, Laplace, you were exactly right. I think I went a little too far. I should have waited and bade my time, like you warned me to. You always were right. Was that regret? I suppose even a villain like him feels regret. Let's hope that the death I gave him helps him get more familiar with that emotion." Chapter 6. The Octogram. The moment I consumed Clayman, the red-haired demon lord guy stood up. "An impressive feat," he solemnly intoned. "I hereby recognize your right, from this day forward, to call yourself a demon lord." Does anyone disagree? Nobody appeared to. I had passed the exam. That's a relief because, to be frank, goading the other demon lords into combat with me felt like suicide. I guess I never had much to worry about. I undid the barrier, allowing Ramirez to fly right up to my face, like she always did. "I always knew you delivered the goods when the time came for it, Rimuru. In fact, I'd be happy to hire you as my apprentice." "Oh, I'm good, thanks. Find yourself another one." "Why?" She grumped. "What's the big deal? Why won't you just say yes, like a good kid?" Milim proudly sniffed. "Rimuru's my friend. I heard he doesn't even want to get along with you." What? No way." "Hey! That's a lie, right, Rimuru?" "Sorry, Ramirez, you aren't part of our team."
Why?
Yeah. Taking the bait, Ramirez launched a flying kick at Milim's face. She leaned to the side to dodge it and laughed even harder at her. These guys are better friends than I thought." Meanwhile, I noticed Veldora engrossed in friendly-looking conversation with the demon Lord Daggerel, bragging about how he was training to keep his aura hidden. "You see him, Daggerel," he said, pointing at me. "That's how you do it." "Indeed," the giant replied, nodding. It was just for a moment, but I felt an explosive amount of magicules from him. Amazing he can hide it so well. Veldora had apparently been providing color commentary for my battle against Clayman. I really wish he'd knock that stuff off. That was exactly why I told him to keep watch in town for me. Dino, meanwhile, yawned at me, his attention span already waning now that the action was over. "Well," he moaned, "it's fine by me. Weirdo. And a hard one to pin, too. I'm never sure what he's thinking about." To Leon, however, none of this mattered. I don't care who becomes a demon lord. Do whatever you want. Talk about cold. Frey and Carillon had no objections to my new title, which left one person. Valentine, who had remained silent until now, lumbered up to his feet. "Mama." Personally, I would never want to allow a low-born slime to ever become a demon lord, but dressed as gaudily as a mighty emperor, Valentine sneered down at me. Guess he was a no, even if I was guaranteed to win by majority vote. No worries then, I thought, as I was about to turn my attention elsewhere when... "Are you insulting my friend, you lackey?" Veldora turned his casual attention on the maid next to Valentine. Come on, Milas, you really need to train your servants better. Want me to provide a little education? Ooh. Hey! What the hell, man? What are you talking about? Milas returned Veldora's gaze, her voice frigid and her expression icy. I am simply a faithful attendant of Sir Valentine. Hey, don't do that. Valentine's hiding the truth, Veldora. You can't say that. Milim? Did you just kind of blow the door open on that or what? I had a suspicion something fishy was going on with him, but I suppose I was right. This fetching young maid Milas was the actual demon lord, and now she glared at Milim, attempting to stab her in the chest with her eye. Finally realizing her error, Milim began whistling a tune to divert everyone's attention away from her. Maybe it would have worked better if she could actually whistle, but no sound was coming out, and I doubted it'd make much difference. Milas didn't seem the type to take a joke, and these antics weren't about to calm her down. She looked around the chamber, thoroughly annoyed, her eyes making her look like she planned to kill us all and hide the evidence. She looked hostile and dangerous, but luckily she decided not to take on the entire rest of the room. Such a bothersome, villainous dragon. How long will he insist upon meddling with me? And you've forgotten my very name, no less. How can anyone have such a gift for aggravating me? Now the atmosphere was very different as Milas. Well, the demon Lord Valentine, that is, spoke. It seems that Veldora was dunderheaded enough to misremember her name entirely, which did a lot to push her buttons. Enough of this, she huffed. You may call me Valentine. Then, with a massive outburst of magical force, her appearance transformed, her maid outfit turning into a fancy Gothic-style dress. It was change dress in action, a neat trick Milim was adept at as well. Yep, yeah, this was the real thing. The stand-in Valentine was a remarkable specimen himself, but his maid was on another dimension. Now we were greeted by a demon lord among demon lords, the ultimate personification of strength and beauty. You can leave ahead of me, Roy, she ordered the kingly ex-Valentine. But Lady Valentine, if I've been unmasked in front of this many people, there's no point keeping up the charade. She glared at Veldora yet again. It's not my fault. I didn't know, he stammered, feeling out of sorts and trying to avoid her gaze. To Milim, meanwhile, it was already someone else's problem. The topic was over in her mind. Selfish as always, I could see. Perhaps understanding that more than most, Valentine seemed ready to drop the subject, as peeved as she was about all this. Shaking off her anger, she stood before Roy, now comfortably back in the servant role. Anyway, she intoned, there is something that concerns me. When Clayman looked at you, his eyes stopped for a moment, did they not? He might be involved with those cockroaches that invaded my domain earlier. I want you to return home and inform my people to step up our security. Guess Carillon and I weren't the only guys Clayman picked a fight with. No wonder everybody hated him. Maybe he was just trying to discover where Valentine's domain was. It was still a secret, but even for a data-gathering fiend like him, sometimes it was all too easy to step over the line. Yes, my lady. Roy left the chamber alone, not questioning Valentine's order for a moment. No, he had no business being on the throne at all. He really was just a political stand-in. It was, I suppose, a sign of Valentine's power and influence. Time to switch gears. I plucked the round table out from my stomach and set it back in place. Good thing I thought about storing it before I smashed it up. If battle had broken out before the barrier was in place, I'm sure it would have been a mess. The thing looked far too fancy for restitution to be cheap. All the demon lords sat back down at the table while Guy's two maids prepared some tea for us. Ah, Leon suddenly said next to me, I just remembered. I thought I had heard the name Kazalim somewhere before, but that's the demon lord I killed, isn't it? I thought I was going to spit the tea out right there. How could he be so nonchalant with that? You know him, Leon. And how could Milim not know that? The other demon lords seemed similarly unfazed, many apparently clueless about the guy. Even Ramirez had completely forgotten. I thought she kept her memories whenever she was reborn. I wanted to poke fun at her about it, but that'd just be mean. So what's Kazalim got to do with this? Understood. The word Kazalim was uttered by Clayman as he called for help. Oh, right. Now I remember. He did scream something like that. I totally remember that, so hopefully nobody's putting me on the same boat with Malim and Ramirez. So, how is this Kazalim related to Clayman? I asked. Kazalim is the Curse Lord, Carolyn explained. You and he recommended me to this post, didn't you, Malim? Oh, him. The Curse Lord, I remember. So, that's the demon lord Leon killed? So she knew him by his nickname? That made a little sense. But really, it's not like Leon killed any other demon lords. If I had to guess, she probably almost forgot since it was just all too boring to her. Right. Kazalim was a walking dead-like Clayman, said Carillon, his voice a tad nostalgic. A unique monster, he said, evolved by himself from an elf. I was kind of friendly with him, so that's what he told me. The two of them must have been connected behind the scenes. Clayman took over Kazalim's old seat. Besides, unlike Clayman, Carillon didn't seem to have any bad blood for this guy. But hang on a minute. I almost let it pass, but if Kazalim's a walking dead too? Is Kazalim still alive? Maybe he just pretended Leon killed him and he's hiding out somewhere? Yeah, agreed Carillon. That might be the case. He was a really sharp guy, you know. You had to be even more careful with him than Clayman. So maybe I was right. Well, Leon naturally objected. I don't much like you phrasing it like I let him get away. He invited me to join his force, claiming he would help me become a demon lord. Turning him down would have led to assorted annoyances, so I decided to defeat him and seize his position. Whether he's alive or dead, it doesn't matter to me. Certainly, I could see it if Leon just wanted to stage a display of power without actually wanting to kill him. Whoa, wow. There, Leon? That's exactly why Clayman hated you, you realize. Do you think I care? Yeah. To Leon, the whole subject was just an annoyance, no doubt. I didn't realize Clayman was trying to put the screws to Leon, too, though. He was just trying to hit everyone up, wasn't he? I was starting to wonder just how smart he really was. Still, I was starting to gain a picture of what Kazalim and Clayman were up to. Leon had taken his seat here around 2 centuries ago, so maybe Kazalim got Carillon and Clayman into the club, then tried to earn a few more friends for himself. Clayman's earlier scheme to turn an orc lord into a demon lord seemed like kind of a rehash of that. He wanted more people friendly to him so he could wield more power at Walpurgis. Trying to build blocks of voters like in an Earth government was a surprisingly sneaky and non-demon lord-like move, I thought. A pretty powerful one, too. Among Clayman's allies were a group called the Moderate Jesters, I said. Those jesters hinted that they had connections among the human world, so perhaps the resurrected Kazalim has taken human form, you know. According to Leon, Kazalim's body disappeared after he was defeated. If he was alive again, it'd be in his spiritual body form at first. It made sense that he'd then install himself into the physical body of something else. Reviving himself within the realm of a demon lord would lead to being instantly discovered, and considering nobody had found him yet, that theory could be safely discounted. You might be correct, Guy unexpectedly stated. Leon's attacks have the power to destroy your spirit. If anything, I would mightily praise Kazalim for surviving. Plus, even for demons like ourselves, a full resurrection from our souls alone takes hundreds of years. I doubt a walking dead could ever perform it alone. not without assistance. Walking dead, unlike demons, were dependent on their physical bodies. Full resurrection from the astral body took time, and if anything, Kazalim being alive would be a small miracle. So did Guy mean to imply that Kazalim had helped? It all seemed connected, but for now we had no further evidence to go on. Well, either way, I'll just assume he's alive and stay on my guard for him. If I just killed Clayman, he might be out for revenge. Why worry, Rimuru? You're a lot stronger than him now. Milim! I shouted. That's the exact kind of cockiness that leads to getting killed. Thanks to my victory today, Clayman's forces were out of the picture. I didn't think our foes would make any moves for a while, but we still had to keep a sharp watch out. Me alone was one thing, but I now had legions of friends to keep safe. We'd have to devote more resources to our defense and think up ways to handle the threats ahead. After some more chatting, the council continued. With the one who called it out of the meeting, Guy took over in his place. The main subject of this council was Carillon's betrayal and the rise of Rimuru over there, but those issues have been settled. Carillon has betrayed no one, and Rimuru has demonstrated ample power to join our ranks. Personally, I'd be happy to adjourn this session here, but an opportunity like this doesn't come along every day. Does anyone have something they'd like to say to the other demon lords? Could I, perhaps? Since we're in the middle of this council, I have a suggestion to give, or really more a request, Frey said. Certainly. Go ahead, go ahead. Frey nodded at Guy. Starting today, I've decided to serve Milim. As a result, I want to abdicate from my seat as a demon lord. Well, that was a bombshell. Whoa, that's kind of sudden, isn't it? Wait, Frey. I didn't hear anything about that. No, because I didn't say anything about it. But I've been thinking about it for a while. Do you see? She squinted as if looking at some faraway point. Then she laughed like she was recalling something amusing. Frey recalled a conversation she had with Milim, the one that made her decide to place her trust in the girl. Hey, Frey, you want to be friends with me? Why are you asking me that? Well, Rimuru and I just made friends. Friends are really great. If you ever have any trouble, you both help out each other. Oh, really? Well, Milim, if you're willing to help me out, then, all right, I can be your friend. Really? Oh, I totally promise, of course. You do? I'm glad to hear that, but I'm a pretty wary woman, so I'll trust you only if you keep that promise. All right. Hooray, we're friends now. Frey had no trust in Clayman. That was why she believed in Milim, putting her own safety in the balance as she pretended to accept his terms. What if Milim broke that promise? What if Milim's mind really was under his control? The questions worried her, but Frey still placed her chips on Milim, and they paid off big time. That was the reason. The reason why Frey put all her trust in Milim, volunteering to become her servant. At that moment, a lofty queen who had never trusted anyone before in her life finally found it in her to believe. Well, she resolutely stated, I have my reasons, but the most important one is that I think I'm too weak to be a demon lord. I realized that for sure watching that battle just now. If I fought against Clayman, I'd be lucky to even match him. As for an awakened Clayman, I don't see how I could win. But, Frey, Daggerel interrupted, you specialize in high-speed aerial combat, do you not? I see no reason to depreciate yourself like this. You're right. If it was in the air, I would have the advantage. But demon lords don't have the right to make excuses. Besides, I know quite well how having an advantage doesn't mean anything at times. She paused to give me a look, her voice resolute. So I've decided to become one of Milim's followers instead. Plus, Milim can't afford to be as selfish as she is forever, can she? She needs to think about managing her domain sooner or later. In other words, Frey wasn't just thinking for herself. Milim was a wild child, and you couldn't just let her off the leash. Someone to both support and keep an eye on her was definitely needed. Despite Frey's own admission, I really couldn't see her as being that weak. If anything, she was a strategist in a different way from Clayman, a strange, eerie leader who never let you see what she thought about you. The type that reminded you just how formidable her sex could be. What would happen, though, if this actually happened? Thinking of Frey in terms of a servant, not as a demon lord, she definitely had enough power to be an aid to Milim. She didn't really have a nation of her own, but if Frey joined her, they'd no doubt have a formal territory in place before long. We'd have to think about building political relations soon after, and with Frey handling them, I bet the negotiations would get pretty thorny. Thorny, but still fun. Frey turned toward Milim. What do you think? Will you accept my suggestion? I don't really like to keep a citizenry to rule over. Wait a second, Carolyn said. I got something to say about that too. I've already lost to Milim in a one-on-one match. I'm honestly starting to think now's a pretty good time to hang up my cap as a military leader. On paper, all us demon lords are equal. If we're all facing a hero, that's one thing, but if I lost to another demon lord, I really ought to do away with the title, So, I don't know, it just felt absurd for me to keep calling myself a demon lord. So I think I'll join Milim's faction, starting today. Great to be on the team, boss! He wasn't asking for feedback. I could understand the logic. With these guys, might always makes right. Still, though, Milim didn't have anyone under her, no advisors or officers to go out against this, but was it really okay for two demon lords to step down and join her side? Wait a minute, Carillon. That one-on-one was all Clayman's fault. I was under mind control. I don't know anything about it. Eesh. I really don't think that excuse is gonna work, Milim. I could see the other demon lords rolling their eyes at her. Don't play dumb with me, you. You just declared a minute ago that, nobody can take over my mind. No! It was a remarkably good impression on Carolyn's part. He had quite a talent for acting. May I, that muscle-bound idiot can wait. What about me, Milim? You aren't all saying this to trick me, are you? If you start serving me, that means we can't talk all casually any longer, yeah? You won't play with me, and we won't come up with any more fun schemes, yeah? Frey shook her head. No, I'll get to be together with you all the time. We'll get to have more fun than ever. I could see the brainwashing, the temptation take hold. See? This is why you got to watch out for her. Carillon, meanwhile, was taking the fastball down the middle approach. Besides, he complained, you're the one who blew my entire damn country away. Rimuru said he'll help me out with that, but you've got a duty to support us, too. I didn't think she did, really, but Milim was always weak with complicated concepts like this. Man, he was smarter than I thought. Milim's eyes were bouncing to and fro. He almost had her, and then, growing wary of thinking at all, she exploded. "Duh! All right, just do whatever you guys feel like." Smoke flew from her head like an erupting volcano as she abandoned all sentient thought. That's Milim for you. She acted all smart, but she really sucked at critical thinking. Are you really sure about this, Carolyn? Guy asked. I am. I've been thinking too. Not about abdicating the throne of the Beast Kingdom, but about maybe building some kind of new structure with Milim at the top of it. Guy scoffed at this, looking disappointed. I liked you, though. In another 100 years I was expecting you to awaken too. Then he grinned at him. But very well. From this moment, Frey and Carillon are no longer demon lords. You are free to serve Melim in any manner you please. Now the abdication was official, and nobody voiced any further complaint. Myself included, of course. So now I was officially deemed a demon lord. One had dropped out due to brutal death, and 2 had stepped down to become vassals, answering directly to Melim. The 10 great demon lords were now 8. I thought this would mark the end of the council, but there was one problem left. So we aren't the 10 great demon lords any longer? It was just a sidelong observation on my part, but it generated a much greater reaction than expected. That is a concern, Daggrel rumbled. In terms of our dignity, we will need to consider a new name. It's really that important. Fortunately, Walpurgis is still underway. We have all our demon lords here. Now would be a wonderful time to brainstorm. Even Valentine, the demon lord who definitely couldn't take a joke, was unironically up for it. Does this really matter, guys? I think the humans are going to come up with one for us either way, right? Ooh, yes, it was a real mess the last go-round. Our numbers kept going up and down, and we had to hold so many darn councils to settle on a new name each time. They trigger Walpurgises on something that unimportant. Ramirez described them as this grand, stately event, a special meeting of the minds. Oh, but didn't she call it a chat over tea at first? I was really starting not to care. You're right, said Daggrel. The 10 great demon lords thing stuck after the humans came up with that, didn't it? After we wasted all that time thinking something up. Well, I'm through with it. I don't have the wherewithal to think about it. You just wanted to stop using your brain for a while, didn't you? Don't act like you were such a helpful participant up to now. Silence, you. All you did was complain. I don't remember a single constructive suggestion from your end. Valentine knew exactly what I was thinking. What you talking about, Valentine? You left that whole process to Roy, did you not? Dino shot her down. Unlike Melim and Ramirez, their erudition was mainly utilized to avoid work as much as possible. Why were they spending all this time thinking up names anyway? Like they appeared dead serious about this. Did all demon lords have this much free time to work with? Upon further query, I learned that the name 10 great demon lords from the human realms stuck because they had spent years trying to devise something themselves. That was due to fluctuations in the number of demon lords. Just when they thought they had something nailed down, they'd go up or down ahead. So they wound up just going with the 10 great demon lords, even though some were less than happy with it. It was all some of the most useless trivia I ever heard. All right. People, calm down. We need to show some cooperation for a change. We can overcome this. Guy had just admitted that his fellow demon lords were usually pretty damn uncooperative. But should we, The 8 great. Ramirez's suggestion was met with such deafening silence that she couldn't even get it fully out. Right, she stammered, trying to deflect it. Guy's got a good point. Let's work on this together. Enthusiasm for the 8 great demon lords was at an all-time low. Everyone was in agreement on that, but it didn't mean we were being any more cooperative with one another. I'll let you guys take care of that stuff. I'm tired. I'm gonna go to sleep. It took less than a minute for us all to fall apart. I expected it from these guys, and I sure got it. I wasn't expecting one big happy family, but it was exactly as I predicted. But one among us was able to cut through the awkward atmosphere. Someone behind me who wasn't picking up on our impasse at all. Oh, if that's the problem, then my Rimuru's a real professional. It was Veldora, no doubt, growing bored and pining to go home already. Now all their eyes were on me. I really wish he had some manga to read instead. Wait. Did he already finish reading the last volume? And now I could see Milim's eyes fixated upon him, or actually that manga volume in his hand like a hawk sizing up its prey. I had a bad feeling about that, but there were more pressing issues at hand. You know, Ramirez said with a nod when he named Beretta. He came up with that name in no time flat, too. Great! They were delegating everything to me. That bum, she's treating me with less and less respect over time, I swear. I could tell she was gradually going to push more and more on my plate. Looking around, I could see expectant expressions all around the table. Crap! They've already fully surrounded me. The demon lords looked at one another. Then Guy stood up. Rimuru, today you stand as a new demon lord. I wish to grant you a wonderful new privilege. Oh, I don't need it, thank. I tried cutting him off before he could finish. He wasn't gonna let it happen. With a heavy wham, the shiny, obsidian-like, horribly valuable table was chopped right in half. Yes, he said as he gracefully walked right up to me, running a hand past my cheek. I will grant you the right to provide us with a new name. A very honorable position, I should say. You will accept it, yes? He was totally wheedling me. The gesture might have made it look like kindness at first, but his voice made it clear that no insubordination would be allowed. I looked at him, neither nodding nor shaking my head, attempting to plead the fifth. And, you know, he whispered, half biting at my ears. His fingernails were practically screeching as they dug into my cheek. This all happened because you culled our numbers, did it not? You'll be kind enough to take responsibility and come up with a name, yes? An impartial observer might wonder if we were lovers sharing a special moment. We weren't. He was threatening me, but if things had gone this far, I had nothing to refute him with. It's really that much of a pain. Well, whatever. All right. Sheesh. You don't have to whine so much just because you don't like it. Resigning myself to my fate, I grudgingly took up the post. The looks of relief on my colleagues' faces spoke volumes. Some were even kicking back and accepting refills on their tea, like this was already over. Well, screw them. Really, I didn't mind the 8 great demon lords much, but yeah, maybe it's a little too obvious. I figured that was what Ramirez was about to suggest, so let's just trash that right off. The pressure to drop the idea immediately was palpable in the air. No way I wanted to have those frowning faces upon me. Which left 'em. Come to think of it, it's a new moon tonight, isn't it? A night sky full of beautiful twinkling stars. Hey, how about the octagram? You know, like an 8-pointed star? It was greeted by silence, the demon lords closing their eyes and scrutinizing the word. Then they all reopened them in unison. Settled, then. Quite lovely. See? I told you. I just knew Rimuru would pull it off for us. Impressive. I can see Veldora's recommendation was an apt one. Well, so be it. Perhaps you are slightly talented. Dang. Just like that. Wow. Like, what was with all the trouble we had last time anyway? Mom, no negative feedback. Well, great. If anyone did voice a complaint, I was thinking I'd throw the job over to them instead. I don't know why Milim's acting like she engineered all this, though. And that's the question I'd want to ask you, Dino. What were you talking about all those times before? I had a lot of questions, but as a mature adult, I had the composure to just pretend my problems didn't exist. From this point forward, we would be feared and revered under a new name. We were called the Octagram. Lord of Darkness, Guy Crimson, Demon, Destroyer, Milim Nava, Dragonoid, Labyrinth Master Ramirez, Pixie, Earthquake Daggrel, Giant, Queen of Nightmares, Valentine, Vampire, Sleeping Ruler Dino, Fallen, Platinum, Saber, Leon, Cromwell, Demonoid, And me, Newbie Rimuru Tempest Slime. We numbered 8 in all, and with those 8 we had just opened the curtain on a new era of demon lords. The first order of business was how we distributed our domains. I was granted the entirety of the great forest of Jura, which was a hell of a bargain, but Milim got an even better deal. The unified domains of Frey, Carillon, and Clayman under her rule. Rule, of course, in name only. Carillon and Frey would be handling the day-to-day management, alongside the dragon faithful directly serving Milim. Clayman's old domain was also something of a buffer zone bordering the Eastern Empire. We'd have to investigate how he administrated it and build defense lines as needed. Kind of a pain in the ass. Someone would need to devote a lot of detail-oriented work to it. But that was something for Milim and her new government to think about. I had my own priorities to manage. The rest of the demon lords saw no change in territorial land. Some simply wandered around with no home to call their own. Some kept their exact location hidden. Some set up fortresses on far-flung continents. It was rare for any of them to have precisely defined borders, so even if there was any change, it'd be hard to decipher. These demon lords tended not to sweat the details, no, but they did have ways of keeping in touch. That was the function of the ring granted to each one, as a symbol of their post. Not only did they identify the wearer, they also provided for interdimensional calls between demon lords, either secret ones between 2 people or party lines with multiple participants. A pretty useful bit of magic jewelry, this so-called demon's ring. With it, I could get into contact with them even if I was stuck inside an unlimited imprisonment. I'd have to consider running analyze and assess on it for mass manufacturing purposes. Not that I was about to tell these guys about that. Clayman's schemes and the chaos he spread around the forest were a thing of the past. I had been accepted as a new demon lord. Kazalim, Clayman's apparent master, was a worry to me, but the demon lord drama I dealt with was now all taken care of. Now I was a full-fledged vertex on the octagram. Epilogue. In the Holy Land. Dang, Laplace thought as he ran as fast as his legs could take him. I thought I was gonna die! Just as they had discussed, he had attempted to break into the Holy Domain once more the moment the Walpurgis Council began. He was on his way to the cathedral inside the Holy Temple, headed for the inner cloister where he ran into a demon lord last time, only to run into the worst person possible. She was none other than the epitome of strength and beauty, Hinata Sakaguchi, captain of the chief knights of the Holy Imperial Guard and leader of the church's paladin forces.
What? What the hell?
This ain't how the promise went. Laplace cursed his absent client. The promise was that said client would lure Hinata out of there for him. He could already hear the guy laughing and saying, "Oops." Sorry to him. The mere thought of it irritated him gravely. But now was no time for grousing. I do so detest insects like you. Burrowing into a holy place such as this. The sound of Hinata's cold voice made him feel like the life was ebbing out of him. Without another moment's hesitation, Laplace decided to run, and he made it out, alive and well. His mission was a failure. The inner cloister might as well have been on another planet, but none of it was Laplace's fault. Whether the demon Lord Valentine's absent or not, if she's around, it doesn't bloody matter. You expect me to beat that monster? He whispered to himself as he gave up the job. Still, he thought, I've been doing nothing but run lately, huh? He wanted to give himself a well-deserved pat on the back for getting away from Hinata at all, but that didn't mean he liked it much. Given the terrible hand fate had been dealing him lately, it didn't seem smart to assume he'd make it all the way. Then he felt a rift appear on the outskirts of the holy city, erupting into a massive wave of magical energy. Oh, for real? Laplace could barely stand this any longer. That wasn't just a high-level magic born. It was something even stronger than that. Plus, Laplace was familiar with its magical wavelength. "You little worm, show yourself before me now." The voice of the demon Lord Valentine thundered angrily, like a maelstrom of purging fire. "Damn it! Damn it! Now it's a demon lord." Laplace wanted to wail out loud at the completeness of his sheer bad luck, but now wasn't the time for that. He attempted to run off once more. You're just as lowly as him, I see. Do you just enjoy inching around?" Then he stopped, sensing something in Valentine's choice of words. "What do you mean?" "It does not involve you," Valentine scornfully laughed. "But very well. Just a moment ago, the demon Lord Clayman lost his life. That foolish, snivelling little maggot fled for his life too, just like you mewling pathetically the whole time." "What? What?" "Why, are you angry? What does it matter to you?" "Shut up! Are you for real? Clayman's dead." "Ha ha 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 ha!" "So the maggot's let the cat out of the bag, has he? I thought you two might be connected by the will of the goddess Luminous." Laplace stood there, dazed, before Valentine's loud laughter. Clayman's death was too much for him to believe. Not that he couldn't believe it, he just didn't want to. To him, Clayman was a good friend and companion, if restless and nervous. "What are you laughing about, ya pile of garbage? Who do you think you're talking to, you? None? Dumb bass!" "I told you not to laugh at my friend." Laplace's fists never stopped swinging. They were literally killer, both of them. "No! Don't you start on me, maggot!" His face reddened with anger and humiliation. Valentine glared at Laplace. No matter how much this insect hit him, ultra-speed regeneration made it all pointless. Death was the only way to give fools like these a lesson, as he thought it. He didn't even stop to wipe the blood sprays that even now turned into a fine crimson mist that descended around them both. "Die! Blood, right?" Valentine cried. Amid this absolute barrier of gore, a torrent of visceral blood particles hurtled at the speed of a bullet toward. Nowhere. You're a dead man." "What?" Ooh. Valentine had no idea what happened. He bore overwhelming power, and this little maggot was toying with him. He had tried to kill him with his most powerful of skills, but for some reason it never went off. Tonight was a new moon, the period when his powers were at their lowest point, but to a demon lord the difference was trivial. There could be only one explanation. Laplace was strong. And this turned out to be correct. In Laplace's hand there was something throbbing. "Ooh. Yep. Yeah. That's your core there, your heart. Can't move, can't speak. Am I right? That's what I do." As Laplace gave him the cruel news, Valentine's body began to unconsciously shiver little by little. It almost felt like fear. Am I feeling fear? "You Jews, but you got it now, yeah?" "I'm a strong one." Valentine's face turned pale, wincing in desperation. He realized that Laplace really did have his core in his hand. All was lost. The expression made Laplace whoop in crazed laughter as he crushed it with his fingers. The battle was decided in a single moment. Laplace didn't stop smiling for a while after. "Ooh. Oh, Footman's not gonna like this." He had massacred all the guards who spotted him. Oh, and Tears probably gonna cry too. He had attempted to flee straight out of there, and that's exactly why I'm laughing. Laughing at you, Clayman, for being such a perfect idiot. The crazed clown, in his estimation, had experienced exactly the death he deserved. Laplace wasn't angry. He wasn't crying. He was just laughing, in commemoration of a friend who would no longer laugh with him. Afterword. Hey! It's been a while. About 5 months since the previous volume. Yeah, it's volume 6 of that time I got reincarnated as a slime, and it's time for the traditional afterword. This volume is the result of yet another epic battle between my editor, Mr. I, and me over what to write and what to cut out. Mr. I was a lot nicer to me back in volume 1, you know. I remember one conversation. You know, if you really don't like writing an afterword, it's okay if you don't. Really? Thanks a lot. I don't know what I should write in it. I'm just not very good at that kind of thing, so I really appreciate you saying that. However, flash forward to this volume. I'm putting the pages together and it looks like we're gonna need about 8 pages of afterword. 8? 8? Isn't that a lot? I mean, seriously, 8 pages is a crazy amount of afterword. You can see why I was aghast. Well, there's just no getting around it, I'm afraid. With the binding we're using, if we cut out all the blank pages, we won't have space for an afterword at all. Oh, okay. Let's go with that. No. What you talking about? I really need an afterword from you. Once upon a time, he gently whispered to me that he didn't need any afterword for volume 1. Where did that kindly Mr. I go? Sure, I look forward to the afterwords of novel series I have a thing for, but once you're the one writing them, you quickly defect to the don't need 'em crowd. That's one of my special, if distressingly awful, skills, the ability to freely change my mind based on my current perspective. I tried using that superpower to have Mr. I see things my way, but whether it means more pages or not, I've got to have you write it. The afterword choice is not on the table. With a single roar from the editorial office, the option of skipping the afterword was crushed to oblivion. So I gave up, and after several more rounds of negotiation, we successfully managed to cut a couple pages. I tell you, though, it's starting to become a regular exchange between us. I think the page count's gonna go up a little this time, too. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Just keep on writing. And then there's the afterword on top of that. And here I was worried about the manuscript ballooning too much. This volume's already thicker than normal, and now I had to cough up more afterword pages. Mr. I must be nuts. By the way, when I submitted my first draft, his first piece of feedback was, the scene with isn't there, but what's up with that? Oh, well, the page count was going up too much, so I very reluctantly had to cut it out. You can't do that, can you? That's a really vital scene. Yeah, but there's nothing else I can cut out. Seriously, man, I don't want you worrying about cutting your own content. Just write it. When it comes to slime, we've decided to just let you write as much as you've got. Thanks to that, despite the first draft already being the longest manuscript in slime history, it wound up being expanded a good several thousand words more. In Japan, this series is published by GC Novels in the Shinsho format, which features 2 separate columns of text per page instead of one, so more can be crammed in. Thanks to that, I had already published the novel with the highest word count in GC history, but with this volume, I am now number 1 in page count too. It's a new record. Mr. I crowed. I have no idea what he's aiming for with that. But anyway, the result of all that silly back and forth is volume 6. It's thicker than anything that came before it, and I hope you've enjoyed it for a lot more than just its size. Now, let's cover a bit of the content. As I mentioned in Volume 2, I'm the kind of guy who peruses the afterword first, so I just want to warn you that I'm not gonna be shy with spoilers ahead. Proceed at your own risk. I mentioned this topic in the afterword to Volume 5, but number 6 is full of original content, not in the web version too. It should be quite obvious from the table of contents, but this is the volume where Rimuru is recognized as a demon lord in name and deed, and the term octogram is coined for the whole gang. Volumes 5 and 6 cover everything in Chapter 4 of the web series, the Birth of a Demon Lord arc, and given how Birth of a Demon Lord's events wouldn't even fill up all of Volume 5, you can see how almost everything in this book is new material. The exchanges Mr. I and I had about this were discussed in Volume 5, and I tried my best not to have the results read like a watered-down bottle of Calpit. Speaking of that content, well, as always, I'm running a large cast of characters. Perhaps readers of the web version have a head start, but if you're following the printed novels alone, it might be pretty tough going. If you think about it, though, this book has over twice the word count of your typical paperback light novel, so maybe it's not that bad, proportionally speaking. I wanted to fill it in with some illustrations, of course, so Mitzvah's put in a hell of an effort for me this time, too. All 10 demon lords.
What?
There's 11? Well, that's weird. Show up in this volume, and I think they're all looking really cool. There was another heated battle between Mitzvah and Mr. I over how large to make the female characters' breasts, but that wasn't anything for me to get involved with. I'll have to wait for the final illustrations to see how the results of that debate turned out. Oops. Getting off track here. Thanks to those wonderful illustrations, though, I think they make it a lot easier to picture the cast in your mind. Regarding conflicts between the web and print versions, well, I think we're somehow managing to keep the overall story arc identical, you could say. Of course, you've got at least one character with completely different motivations, others whose backstory itself has changed, and if you examine the smaller details, there are differences all over the place. It might be harder to find unedited passages that are exactly as they were written on the web, maybe. Going forward, all these changes might pile up to the point that it turns into a completely different story. I'm intending to stick to the same general plot line, but really I can't truly know until I start writing. That's the philosophy of slime, I suppose, and I hope you'll keep reading. I'd like to close this afterword with a few words of thanks. First to Mitzvah, who provides such excellent artwork. Seeing some of the rough drafts has made me completely rethink my image of certain characters. It's great to receive this kind of stimulus. We've still got a bunch of new characters to introduce, so keep up the good work. Next, Taiki Kawakami, author of the manga version, along with his editor, Mr. Yu. I can't say enough about how they answer all my petty requests for each chapter. I asked him for a couple of bonus pages for this volume too, and he very kindly accepted. Thanks so much. You think I just wanted to reduce the number of afterword pages I had to write? I have no idea what you're talking about. My editor, Mr. I has always been there to discuss things with me. His opinions and feedback are truly a treasure. If an editor doesn't understand your work, I doubt there's any way you'll ever convince a larger audience to like it. Keep that feedback coming. Don't hold back. Thanks also go out to everyone involved with proofreading, design, and production. I'm sure the proofreaders in particular had a hard time checking such a huge quantity of words. Thanks so much for your hard work. Finally, I just want to tell the readers kind enough to purchase this book that I'll continue to strive to make that time I got reincarnated as a slime the most enjoyable read it can possibly be. See you in the next volume. Thank you for buying this ebook published by Yen On. To get news about the latest manga, graphic novels and light novels from Yen Press, along with special offers and exclusive content, sign up for the Yen Press newsletter. Sign up or visit us at W. Yen Press, Kombuklang.